across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, it's just gone 7 p.m. It is Mark Dolan on the home of Common Sense Talk. And many thanks to Jeremy Kyle for a brilliant 3 hours. We're going to pick up what has been a very lively conversation. And once again, it's the only story in town, illegal immigration. And the massive news that the Epping Migrant Hotel is set to chuck out the illegal immigrants who are residing there as we speak by mid-September. It's a victory for people power, but the problem is these folks are going to have to go somewhere else. Also tonight, Rachel Reeves is now so desperate for cash, given her shocking economic policies. She's considering a brutal annual tax based on the value of your home. So you worked hard all these years, scrimped and saved to keep that mortgage paid, and now you will be clobbered. And potentially, for the first time in history, a tax on the sale of your main residence. Extraordinary stuff. Would you back that? Is that a way of tackling our economic problems? I don't think so. I think we should spend less money, but give me your views. 0344 499 1000. Britain is losing 8 pubs a week, and whilst it's proof of a failing economy, and we know who to blame for that, Rachel from Accounts, but does it also represent the erasure of our country's history and traditions, with local authorities tearing down flags of the United Kingdom? Is it demonstrating a lack of support for pubs and another assault on the life that we hold dear in this country? We'll get to that very shortly. And here's a story for you. Breaking tonight. The latest polling suggests that the Conservatives will win just 35 seats at the next election. That's right, the Tories will win 35 seats at the next election, with Reform achieving a majority of over 20. So the question is, can Nigel Farage deliver if he becomes Prime Minister? Is he going to be Britain's Donald Trump, who has, I think you'll agree, notwithstanding his personal foibles, already been a transformative figure? But can Nigel be Britain's Trump? Let me know. 0344 499 1000. It's Mark Dolan, back at my spiritual home. We are on Talk. We're on the radio. We're in-app. We're online, we're everywhere. You can't get rid of me. Now, I've been saying this ad nauseam for the last 5-6 years, ever since I entered current affairs journalism, which is that the illegal immigration crisis is a humanitarian, societal, and economic disaster. It's a humanitarian disaster because people in those dinghies and other vessels, which obviously are not remotely seaworthy, are incredibly dangerous, and people perish. And they're all human beings, and some of them are injured, some of them die, often children. So it is a human tragedy, and it's therefore very ironic that the left in particular have turned a blind eye to the illegal immigration issue in this country and seem to tolerate it as our responsibility. And yet people are dying. Then you've got an economic crisis. So the cost of accommodating people who have entered the country illegally is in excess of £5 billion a year. Now, the question is, where else should that money go? Well, that money could go on hospitals, it could go to doctors and nurses, it could go to policing. Goodness knows we need more policing. I just, on my way into this studio, witnessed a lovely woman of East Asian background having somebody on a bicycle, a modern-day hoodlum, with a mask on, trying to wrestle the mobile phone out of her hand. And I was just on my motorbike, I couldn't really help. Luckily, she had the tenacity to hang on to the motorbike. An attempt was made on my phone the other day. We're living in a lawless society. It's absolute chaos. So we need more police. And yet what we're doing is spending an enormous amount of money accommodating people that have broken the law, and we're accommodating them in hotels. Now, this is the story in Epping and the Bell Hotel. This is a victory for people power, absolutely, for peaceful protest, not violent protest, which is against the law, reprehensible and wrong. But it's a victory for people power and for mums and dads worried about the safety of their kids, worried about the safety of all of us. Because if undocumented people enter the country illegally. We don't know who they are, and they might be the next great entrepreneur. They might be potential engineers and rocket scientists. But sadly, many will not. The vast majority of the people that enter this country illegally will receive asylum. And they've jumped the queue. They have paid disgusting, reprobate criminals, gangsters, to get that crossing in a dinghy. So they've participated in an illegal trade. By the way, Keir Starmer's going to smash the gangs. How's that working out? We don't know who they are, and that is the issue, and we have to close the door. But this government seems incapable of doing so, and so were the Tories. Now, what is the job of the state? Well, I think it does three things. It's there to collect tax, and with that money, provide public services. That's the first thing it's there to do. The second thing it's there to do is keep law and order on the streets, which, by the way, it's failing to do, as I mentioned, not just the phone snatching. We've got chaos and disorder and antisocial behaviour in all of our great towns and cities. Older people are afraid to leave the house at night or even during the day. You've got folks that just literally exist within their own moral vacuum. And you've got another added issue, not just the antisocial behaviour, you've got shoplifting, which has been decriminalised in this country. If you have a society where instant coffee needs a security tag, if you've got your Nescafe, I don't know what your favourite coffee is. Are you a Kenco person? Let me know, 0344 499 1000. Kenco? Costa? Nescafe Gold Blend. I'm a sucker for the Nescafe Gold Blend because of the amazing romantic adverts in the 90s. Do you remember Will They, Won't They? Oh my God, that was the golden age of TV. Anyhow, but I mean, my local co-op, first of all, the staff there have got body cams. So they need a camera attached to their uniform, such is the societal breakdown in our country, such as the appalling behaviour of some of our fellow citizens. But there's a tag on the instant coffee. I mean, how much is a jar of instant coffee? £3 tops? Maybe £5 if you're one of those real caffeine addicts that needs the enormous 2-litre jobby. So the bottom line is that is chaos. If you have tags, security tags on instant coffee in a supermarket, and if steak is under lock and key, then you have a society that's not working. So that's the second job. The first job they do, collect tax. Too much, by the way. They're killing the economy. 16,000 millionaires are going to leave Britain this year. And what the left don't seem to understand is that we will collectively have to fill that gap. But apparently the rich are evil. OK, you're welcome. So that's what they do. Collect tax, too much of it, provide public services, which, of course, are absolutely horrific. The second job that they have, the second job of work, is to keep law and order on the streets. As I've just outlined, that ain't happening. I wanted to buy a bicycle maybe 6 months ago to get fit. I've got the middle-age spread. You know what I mean? I mean, people think I'm lean and slim, but I'm holding it in, right? This is all smoke and mirrors and good tailoring, and I don't exhale too much. So I thought I will get a bicycle. And what that will allow me to do is get a little fitter and even more lean than I currently am, so I can then disappear. And I decided not to, because I knew that 11 minutes after buying this bicycle, it would be stolen. What is the point? I've seen bicycle thieves brazenly with a lithium-ion hacksaw thing, one of those automatic saws, electric thing, and just casually slice through a lock like a hot knife through butter. So we don't have order on the streets. The taxes are too high for terrible public services. What is the third job of the state? What do you think the third job is? Raise tax, provide public services, law and order on the streets. The third thing they have to do is police our national boundaries. That is their job. That's what they're there for. That's why we give the state our money and we give them our power and we give them our sovereignty. And they are not securing the border because upwards of 50,000 people, and the rest, by the way, because there's no question that the numbers are higher than they say, but the nominal figure of 50,000 a year, which is not just that cost of 5 billion for accommodation that could go on teachers and nurses and all the rest of it, but those folks will receive asylum, by and large, and they will be a net burden on the country for the rest of their lives. Even a relatively active foreign-born national, if they are low-skilled, a recent report revealed that should they reach the age of 90, which thanks to medical science, many of them will be a net loss to the taxpayer of £1 million. That's one person who came here legally, who's a low-skilled worker. And what about the cost of those who enter the country illegally? Are they going to suddenly see the error of their ways and become upstanding citizens and start businesses and all the rest of it? Maybe some of them will. Some of them will not. How many of those people are criminals? How many of those people have terror links? The security services have demonstrated time and again that some of the people that have crossed the channel illegally have terror links. And yet the left think it's a humanitarian thing to allow these folks to come over. It's not. Do you know what it is? It's pathological empathy. That's what, and it's an illness. It's a disease. In the old days, when we did not have this quasi-Marxist, ultra-liberal ideology, you had borders. I mean, look at America. So under Joe Biden, 11 million people entered the United States illegally, and they don't know who those folks are. 11 million people. What does Trump do? He closes the border. He did it almost overnight. But we don't have the political will. So first of all, here's a question for you. Before we get to Sir Michael Fabricant, you don't keep Knights of the Realm waiting for too long. But it's really important. I'm furious about this. Will you ever, because I really want to talk tonight, I really want to talk, right? Clues in the name. This is talk, and I want to hear your opinions. 0344 499 1000. Will you ever forgive the Tories for what they did? Because it's only fair on Labour to say that this big mess was presided over by the Tories. It's a hot mess. It's a dumpster fire. And not just illegal immigration that the Tories failed to tackle, but of course the elephant in the room, as I've touched on, uncontrolled mass legal migration. So I think the killer statistic is that in the last year, wait for this, you're going to be spitting out your evening cup of tea, or perhaps you've had a pint, and you've earned it, let me tell you. Wait for this stat. 1 in 60 people in this country, have you heard this? 1 in 60 people in the United Kingdom entered Britain last year. 1 in 60. And 1 in 25 over the last 4 years. That's sick. That's insane. That's bonkers. That is catastrophic. It's self-destructive. It's unfair, dangerous, divisive, expensive, and wrong. And do you know something? The public have had enough. No one voted for this. No one voted for Boris's ridiculous Boris wave, who an alleged conservative. Well, I sat here in this studio. It's so good to be back in the home of common sense. I sat here in this studio year after year ranting and raving about Boris Johnson, who presided over those ridiculous COVID lockdowns that we didn't need. Look at Sweden, look at Texas, look at Florida, look at Africa, who didn't get the memo about COVID. So we had Boris, but it wasn't just his ridiculous COVID policies, but it was the open door policy. Starmer's right. Starmer said that the Conservatives presided over an open borders experiment. It's the only time I've ever agreed with Sir Keir Starmer, the cervix-free Prime Minister. It's the only time I've agreed with him, but he was absolutely right. But I also said, just before the election, that the Tories are terrible, but Labour are worse. And here we are. We have a Prime Minister who knows nothing about business and enterprise, which is why he's tanking the economy. And we have a Prime Minister who's going to tackle illegal immigration. But what was his last big job? A human rights lawyer. And the protection of people that enter the country illegally is an industry for these people, at the head of which Keir Starmer happily sat when he was a top lawyer, human rights lawyer. What a dreamboat he was with that Brill cream hair and all the rest of it. By the way, apologies, I need a haircut if you're watching on YouTube. I'm so excited to be on Talk Radio. The management called, you know, we're not having the makeover, you know, it's coming. But this is really important that we get to this, to say that you've got a human rights lawyer in a Prime Minister. And what did he say before the election about the Rwanda plan? And I'll stop here because I could do 2 hours, but we'll pick up this conversation. And do you know what? Enough of me talking. I want to hear what you've got to say. Give me a call. And what you can do, speak to Matt, he's a lovely lad, and we try to accommodate all sorts of people here at Talk, including those, you know, that have their difficulties. And bless him, he tries. He puts his heart into it. So Matthew is it, sweetheart, and basically what you're going to do, give him a call, and we'll book you a place to chat later. But what I want to say is that we've got a human rights lawyer turned prime minister. And before the election, the Rwanda plan, he was asked in an interview by an excellent journalist, will you scrap the Rwanda plan even if it's working? And that numpty said, oh, yes, I'll scrap it even if it's working. Now, run that by me again. We elected somebody who went on record as saying before the election, well, lots of things. He didn't know what a woman was. He didn't know what working people were. He wasn't wearing any of his own clothes, paid for by a billionaire. But the other thing he said is, oh, I'll scrap the Rwanda plan, even if it's working. Has there ever been a politician in history that announced that they would scrap a policy even if it was successful? I mean, am I living in a parallel universe? And here's the thing about Rwanda. It was a success. It did work. Don't take my word for it. It's not the Telegraph or the Sun newspaper, which, let me tell you, is a cracking read, nearly as good as the Times. So nice to be in this building again. It did work, Rwanda, because the Taoiseach, what is a Taoiseach? It's the Prime Minister of Ireland. And the Taoiseach of Ireland was complaining about the Rwanda plan, saying all the migrants are coming here because of Rwanda. That was a direct quote. So it already worked before they'd even started it. And people talk about the cost. I don't care how much it costs. Because the bottom line is that once folk know there's a chance they'll go to Rwanda, they ain't coming here. So listen, we're going to continue this conversation. As you can tell, I'm coming in hot tonight. But I'm furious, I'm angry. I just said to JK, after his brilliant 3-hour show, which did a handover earlier, and I said that mass uncontrolled immigration and illegal immigration are the theft of a nation from its own people. Tell me I'm wrong. Give me a call and disagree with me. 0344 499 1000. The public have had enough. Yes, we've had a victory in Epping based on peaceful protest. Can I just say, though, before Sir Michael, here's the thing. They're still here, folks, and they still have to go somewhere. So they'll go into social housing so that Brits can't get a roof over their head, and veterans and homeless folk. So it only really pushes the problem somewhere else. But listen, we're going to spend all night talking about this because it's absolutely huge. But let's get the words and views of Sir Michael Fabricant, former MP, greatly missed in the House of Commons, another voice of common sense. Of course, ex-Big Brother star as well. Hello, Sir Michael.
Hello there. How are you, Mark?
I'm really well,
Great
Michael.
to be back on the radio and television with you.
Well, listen, you're more photogenic than I am. And Michael, first of all, we're gonna take a break in just a second, but you and I, we're here for the hour, and I really want to lock into this. I want to apologise for being so angry, but are you as angry as I am?
Yes, I am. It's utterly frustrating. And, you know, there are ways for legal migrants to come into the UK. I think, first of all migrants who want to come here, and we've benefited in the past from immigration, they've got to be people who want to learn English and be a part of English or Welsh or Scottish or Northern Ireland society. Instead, they seem to go into ghettos or five-star hotels and have no interest at all in actually being a part of our country. And you were quite right in what you said. It's stealing our country from us. You know, you go to some areas. I was on a tube train the other day. I think I was the only white face on the train. And that's no bad thing, but it is a bad thing if I'm the only one there who's speaking English. Having said that, that was in London, so maybe they were tourists, in which case they're very welcome because we need your money.
I know. Well, of course, Michael, you know, you're a very open-minded person and you embrace all people in our society. You're not a prejudicial individual or anything like that. And as you mentioned about immigration, by the way, immigration is part of the British story. It's all about the amount, isn't it? That's the point. Most people wouldn't argue that there should be no immigration ever.
As I said on Big Brother, you know, it's because they made me do a political speech and I was asked to talk about this. And as I said on Big Brother, it's all about people's attitude when they come here. And if you want to come to a country, then you've got to adopt its pattern.
Okay, listen, folks.
You've got to learn the language.
I tell you, I can tell Fabers is on fire tonight. Get your calls in if you want to talk to Michael as well. Then he's taking your calls. 0344 499 1000. One of the most influential politicians of his generation, in the House of Commons for a long time, a very respected figure who knows his onions. So book your call on the show. Give Matthew a call when you get a chance. And what I'll be doing next is holding Michael to account for this horrible immigration mess, because it's the fault of his party. The big question is, will you ever, Dave, concentrate, forgive them?
The people who are putting up these Palestinian flags and other flags representing the Muslim communities, which are very close to being in the majority in some of these areas. This is a serious dispute and a break in the civic structure of our country. And it inevitably is going to lead to more protests, and maybe increasingly angry and even violent protests.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, how about this from Ian in Somerset? Your messages are coming in thick and fast, and a full switchboard, so we're going to call you all back so you can join the conversation. But on the text, 87222, we have this from Ian in Somerset in the west of England, of course, beautiful part of the world. What have you got? Scrumpy, cheese, lots more. And you've got Ian, haven't you? He says, hello, Mark, great to see you on TV. Oh, thank you, Ian. That's very kind of you. I think no asylum should be offered and only refugee status should be offered, because refugees intend to go back home when it's safe again. But giving everyone free money has to be stupidity at its best. Andy said, Mark, nobody asked Blair to open the borders, so don't blame the Conservatives completely. OK, how about this from, who is this? Dean and Alan in Cambodia. Hello, Dean and Alan. Global show, of course. You can catch Talk anywhere on the planet. Love this station so much. Living in Cambodia as a new expat, it's disgusting now what's happening in the UK. Nice to see you back, Mark Dolan. Thank you so much. Mark says, James, I feel your pain, but my mum warned me it all changes when you get to 50. Get on your bike and buy the next size up trousers and you can still drink the same. Trust me. James, words of wisdom. Thank you. You've made my night. Sir Michael, 50,000 people entering the country illegally annually and legal net migration of almost 1 million. How did that happen under a supposedly Conservative government?
Well, first of all, I do have to say that actually 50,000 is an underestimate, because this year we've reached the 50,000 figure back about 3 weeks ago. So it's already 50,000 and rising, partly, as you said earlier on, because he scrapped the Rwanda plan. And although it hadn't even gone ahead, the fact that we had the Rwanda plan was a deterrent. Now they know there's no deterrent, they're coming over. How did it happen under the Conservatives? Well, it shouldn't have. It was the points-based system introduced by Boris Johnson. He thought it would restrict the number of people coming in legally. It didn't, so we had lots of people coming in legally. Part of the problem as well was agreements that we should have got rid of with the European Union when we left the European Union. So there's lots of reasons for it. And one of the problems that the Conservative Party had, in my view, is that it's too much of a broad church. We've got a number of, I call them Lib Dems, they'll condemn me for this, but they call themselves the One Nation lot. And every time we try to do anything regarding Brexit, make this country like Singapore. Everyone goes, Singapore? Shock, horror. But actually, Singapore has the best education and the best health service in the world.
Low taxes and zero crime.
That.
Michael, zero crime. You can leave your mobile
yeah.
phone on a park bench and it'll be there 2 hours later.
Mind you, I don't know whether you've flown into Singapore as I have. You get a card saying that if you bring drugs into Singapore, you are warned that the ultimate penalty is, and then it's in red, death. That's a deterrent. I'm not saying we should do that in the UK. Maybe we should. Maybe that's what some of your viewers or listeners should actually be writing in about. But you're right, no crime. And we could have done all that, and it was a missed opportunity. I'm so annoyed and so angry.
Well, I understand.
As were the electorate.
And so the question is, is this damage to the reputation of the Conservatives irreparable?
Well, irreparable means forever, and ever is a long time. I think in the next few years, it's going to take a lot to get the Conservatives back again. Does that mean there's a real existential threat, as people say, and the Conservative Party is finished? No. But I think it's going to need a reform government, maybe in coalition with a Conservative party as well, to either succeed or fail. Actually, I wish Reform the best of luck. I would rather have Reform than Labour. But, the view I think of most people is, look, the Conservatives made a mess of it, which I think is a little unfair because I can talk of all our achievements, but we won't do that now. But Labour are making an appalling mess of things. And to give you an example economically, Starmer likes to say, Liz Truss crashed the economy. And when he was asked, what do you mean by crash the economy? And he said, well, interest rates went up on the yield of British bonds, British borrowing, in other words. It's now higher under Labour than it ever was under Liz Truss.
It's a whole percentage point higher. The gilt yields.
Yeah, and unlike under Liz Truss, in those days, can you remember Liz Truss? I do, vaguely. Liz Truss, in her day, employment was going up, unemployment was going down, and the country was still growing. What's happened under Labour? As you say, borrowing is now 1% more for the government. That means interest rate is having to be paid by the government instead of being spent on schools, on hospitals and all the rest of it. And unemployment is rising. And for those people watching on TV, there's a picture of Liz Truss talking now. So I hope people are watching this as well as just listening.
Well, let me ask my viewers and listeners, would you have Liz Truss back? Because she wasn't perfect. The issue with the budget, it was well-intentioned, it was poorly executed, and there wasn't enough due diligence. Plus, the blob affected things as well. And then there was the Bank of England asleep at the wheel regarding our pensions liabilities. So you've got to say that so-called crashing the economy came with a lot of caveats. I think if she was still here as Prime Minister, we'd be in much better shape than we are now, Michael Fabricants.
Well, undoubtedly so, because at the moment, unemployment is going up. It wasn't under Liz Truss. The interest rates were lower than they are now as far as government repayment is concerned, and the economy was growing. I'm not saying Liz Truss got it all right, far, far from it. But compared with now, it is extraordinary. You talk about Rachel Reeves from accounts. She wasn't even that. It was Rachel Reeves from customer complaints in a region. What?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say the relationship of this Labour government and the truth is very, very, very distant and semi-detached. But what I will say, we're going to speak to a Labour MP later who's going to defend Labour's record, point out that they did win with a substantial majority because of several years, 14, 15 years of Tory
Yeah, but did you know, Mark, did you know that fewer than 21% of those people eligible to vote voted for Labour? The only reason why they won with a substantial majority is because people were voting for anything but Conservative. And I do understand after 14 years, people wanted a change. But if that Labour MP or any other Labour person says, you know what, the British people wanted Labour, remind them fewer than 21% actually voted for the Labour Party, which is extraordinary.
OK, but of course, fewer voted for the Conservatives. Next up, when is Sir Michael Fabricant, defecting to Reform? He shall reveal all after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, folks, so if you're joining us, you may be aware of this developing story. A council has won its bid to temporarily block asylum seekers for being housed at a hotel in Essex. Epping Forest District Council sought an interim High Court injunction to stop migrants from being accommodated at the Bell Hotel in Epping, which is owned by Somani Hotels Limited. The interim injunction demanded that the hotel be cleared of its occupants within 14 days. They'll be out by the 12th of September, but of course they'll just move on somewhere else. And we're going to come back to Sir Michael Fabricant in just a moment, former Conservative MP and reality star. But first, Chairman of Migration Watch, Alp Mehmet, joins me. Alp, your reaction to this story, sir?
Well, I'm delighted for the community, for the residents of Epping, a town I know well and spent a lot of time in as a kid. And I was horrified when I first heard that there were going to be illegal migrants, because that's how they got in, being housed there in a hotel. I think it was a dreadful decision, really, and shows how much the government is flailing, really, and failing to deal with this problem.
Most definitely. Of course, it's a legacy problem inherited from the Conservatives. The issue we have is, the public are furious about the use of hotels. It's the cost. Plus, a lot of these hotels, have a history within the community. People have their weddings there, birthday parties, that kind of thing. And then you've got a social hub. You've also got the impact on the community and concerns around the safety of women and children, all the rest of it. So the public do not like these migrant hotels. That's okay. But if you closed every single one of them, Alp, these folks would have to go somewhere.
That's what the government is bound to have to do because of the way we've framed our laws. They've got to find some sort of accommodation for these people. But Mark, look, these hotels, if they have to rely on migrants in order to keep afloat, then I suspect that the people who own these hotels are in the wrong business. It shouldn't be a case of having to put migrants who've come across in dinghies from the other side of the channel in there, just to make sure that these business people don't go under. If their business is in that sort of state, then perhaps they should go under. And I don't think that the government should be lending a hand really to keep them afloat.
Most definitely not. Do you see an end to this crisis under Labour?
No, I don't see it. On the contrary, I think it's going to get worse. Over 50,000 since the government won its landslide majority. This year alone, we're just about to hit, with 3 short of 28,000. I think we're likely to reach over 50,000 by the end of the year. If the present pace continues, that won't be stopped by the government shouting and screaming that they're going to smash the gangs, that they're going to have one in, one out. I mean, all gimmicks, the sort of thing that they accuse the Tories of doing. It was bad under the Tories, and I do blame the Tories for allowing it to get out of hand. However, this government is much, much worse, frankly, and the sooner they get their act together, the better.
Briefly, Alp, do you know what happens to these largely young men? Because, you know, we hear about women and children who are a fraction of the intake. It's very often and predominantly men in their 20s and 30s who are most likely economic migrants. The majority of them will receive asylum, won't they? Maybe 80, 90%. What happens to them after that?
Well, it's what happens to them from the point that they enter the country, frankly, where they're given cursory examinations in the way that could never establish what their background is, what their backstory is, and whether or not they pose a risk. Very quickly, they're moved on from places like Manston into dispersal accommodation, including hotels now. Once they've applied for asylum, then that's got to go through the due process. Very often it involves appeals. In the end, whatever happens to them, whether they're granted asylum or not, the fact is that we're not going to remove people to Sudan, to Afghanistan, to the sort of places, frankly, where so many of these migrants are coming from. So what the government needs to do is detain, expand the detention accommodation estate, detain them, deal with them quickly, and then remove them. Remove them either to the countries that they came from, or to a place like Rwanda, which I think the government was totally insane in getting rid of the day after they entered office.
Alp Mehmet, fascinating to hear your thoughts on that. I do hope we can catch up again in the near future. Really good to see you. Alp Mehmet is the chairman of Migration Watch. With me for the hour is one of the most respected politicians of his generation, influential ex-Tory MP, Sir Michael Fabricant. Michael, your reaction to what Alp had to say there?
No, I'm afraid I have to agree with him. How can we not agree with him? The point is that they shouldn't have come over in the first place. We shouldn't have allowed them over. It's not as easy as simply turning the boats around mid-channel, because the Royal Navy took the view if you did that, the boat would tip over and they would be causing a mass drowning. So I can see the problem there, but they should be held in camps. I know the idea of camps is repulsive to some people, but, you know, that doesn't mean to say they're going to be, God forbid, like German camps of the Second World War. But what it does mean is that they shouldn't be put up in five-star hotels and all the rest of it. And the fact that they are being put up in posh hotels is a magnet to bring even more people over. And I'm astonished that actually the government can't see that. And even more astonished that, having heard the Prime Minister of Ireland, the Taoiseach, saying, you know, this Rwanda program is terrible. It's forcing people to come over to us, and they're now leaving England. For Starmer to then say, well, I'm abandoning it, as you say, even if it worked. And it was working before we'd even implemented it. The mere threat of it, and it was working.
Sir Michael, is there a danger of demonising all migrants? Like you mentioned, you know, this country is a big melting pot. My parents, Seamus and Diane, Irish. My dad's passed now. So they were immigrants, and I don't know what your background is, but we've always had immigration, obviously sort of sensible amounts, tens of thousands, and people.
Well, it's always
and the
amused
Windrush
me, by the way.
generation who have been extraordinary relation to the National Health Service, all the rest of it. We've got our Commonwealth connections, so therefore. At the right level, it's a fantastic thing, but clearly it's gone completely crazy now. But is there a danger of demonising both migrants and indeed some people who are fleeing persecution?
Yes, those people who are genuinely fleeing persecution can come into this country, though, because there are channels to do just that. It does amuse me, though, that you've got me, Michael Fabricant, a French name.
Monsieur Fabricant.
One of my colleagues, still in the House of Commons, who was very much involved in this project, was Marc Francois, another French
There's
name.
also Monsieur
Let alone
Farage.
Nigel Farage, which I'm sure is also French.
I
So,
beat you to the punchline.
Pardon?
I beat you to the punchline there. Yeah, no, you're absolutely. You raised a very good point. I wonder. Let's take a call when we can, folks, because I want to bring your views into this conversation. Where do we go from here? Kemi Badenoch is talking tough on illegal immigration. She said that potentially they could get rid of the ECHR, our participation in the European Convention on Human Rights. But that's not a black and white policy. Reformers said they will scrap it and they'll scrap the Human Rights Act. Why won't Kemi go further?
We should have done that right from the beginning. Kemi's huge mistake was to believe that she could behave like in the old-fashioned way, where it was just the Conservative and Labour Party, and she could take time to develop policy. We all knew that we had to get out of the ECHR.
Yeah.
And Kemi's decision not to announce any policies for months and months and months created a vacuum. And that's why the Conservative Party now find themselves being completely smothered by reform. And you quoted those figures from Electoral Calculus at the beginning of the programme.
Yeah.
They predict that there would just be 35 Conservative MPs left. And that's because of the vacuum that Kemi created by not announcing policy. We do have to leave the ECHR. We should have announced it right from the very beginning as soon as she was appointed. But the problem, as I said earlier, is that the Conservative Party is maybe too broad a church. Too many people in the Conservative Party have that sort of Lib Dem outlook, never wanted to leave the European Union in the first place, don't recognise the importance of sovereignty, because that, as you quite rightly said, is one of the three main tenets of actually what a government should preserve: the sovereignty, the independence of a nation. And that's the reason why we didn't get ECHR announced straight away.
Absolutely. I'm a great admirer of yours, Michael, and you're a very ideologically consistent man. You made a big contribution as a constituency MP in Lichfield. And it was only really the dumpster fire that was the Tory project that saw you evicted. But on the strength of your own efforts, you'd have stayed. But the bottom line is, I think many people are so angry with the Tories. And it's not just Boris Johnson and the Boris wave. And I have a personal bugbear with the COVID response, because the Conservative response to COVID would have been to give the public the information about this nasty virus and let them act accordingly. I'll stay home, I won't stay home. That's what Sweden did.
That was the initial plan.
And that was the plan. And that's what Boris wanted to do, but he folded. And then you've got Theresa May, previous Prime Minister, who has recently announced that she's proudly woke, and she signed us up for net zero, even though obviously with that deadline by 2050, but also she was warned by Philip Hammond, her Chancellor, that it would cost £1 trillion, and still she signed on the dotted line. Unforgivable. You've got a lot of fans out there, Michael, and a couple of detractors, as it should be. This is talk. It's all about opinions. And I have a voice note from the gorgeous Sandra.
Hi Mark, it's Sandra from Essex. I agree with Mr Fabricant that the economy under Labour is worse than it was under Liz Truss. But who persuaded her to resign then, other than either members in the then cabinet or Tory backbenchers? I can't imagine it would have been Labour, but perhaps I'm wrong. But I would have thought it would be the people sitting behind her that put pressure on her to resign. Thank you.
What a brilliant voice note. Thank you so much for that,
Yeah, well,
Sandra.
it's quite
Michael, your
interesting
reaction.
if I can come back on this. There weren't names that went in. You know, the whole thing with Theresa May was names went in, the vote of confidence and all the rest of it. That didn't happen with Liz Truss. What happened was that the chairman of the 1922, which is the committee of backbench MPs, went in to see Liz Truss when she was Prime Minister. And she sort of more or less said to him, so we hear from Graham Brady, who was the chairman at the time, she said to him, I suppose that means I can't really carry on. Now, you could argue she could have been absolutely stubborn. She could have done a Margaret Thatcher and said, we fight on. And you know what? After a few weeks, the economy was doing better anyway. And you could have still had Liz Truss in power and not Rishi Sunak. And part of the problem with Rishi Sunak, and there were a number of problems with Rishi Sunak, but we won't go into that now, unless you insist. But one of the problems was he didn't have confidence in himself. He hadn't been elected by the by the membership of the party. He hadn't been elected by the country. So he had no sort of confidence in driving through policy which he needed, should have been driven through.
Yeah.
By the way, you were asking me about whether I should join Reform.
Well, that's the next question. When are you defecting?
Well, I can reveal to you, this is an exclusive for Talk Radio. I must tell you, I have known for a long time Nigel Farage. And I was texting him about something nothing to do with about my joining Reform. Here we are. You can't really see it on the camera.
Were you texting recipes?
We were texting about a mutual friend.
Good.
And he won't be annoyed if I give his name out. His name is Brandon Clark. But anyway, we were texting about a mutual friend called Brandon Clark, who lives in Lichfield. Hello, Brandon, if you're watching. And Nigel Farage came back and said, about time you joined us and won back your old seat.
Wow.
So I replied, ho, ho, ho. No, my politics days are behind me, but I can tell you're enjoying life. Don't let others screw it up for you. And it would be very, very unfair if I tell you what he said at the time about other people screwing it up for him, so I won't.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. Now, that is a fascinating story, that he's reached out to you as an esteemed figure of the right, and he wants you to join the Reform Project. You've sidestepped it elegantly by pointing out that you don't seek an active career in politics anymore. If you were, however, Michael, a couple of decades younger, would you be standing for Reform in 4 years' time?
I might be tempted, simply because I think one of the weaknesses of Reform is there is a lack of experience in Reform of actually working in Parliament. You do need some people who actually know how the system works.
Will you vote Reform in 4 years' time?
Say again?
Will you vote Reform in 4 years' time?
Now, if I were to say on national television I would vote Reform in a few years' time, I'd be thrown out of the Conservative Party. And now you could argue, why do I want to stay in the Conservative Party? Well, you know, it's quite a nice social life in the Conservative Party. So I'm not going to answer you. I'm just going to say that the ballot box is secret.
There you go.
Well, it's supposed to be.
I don't want to hear about your ballot box. It's a family show. Michael, stay with us. I think we'll take that as an effective defection. There you go. Michael would consider being a Reform MP if he were still active in politics. I'm going to get to your calls and more from Sir Michael Fabricant after this short intermission.
people who are putting up these Palestinian flags and other flags representing the Muslim communities, which are very close to being in the majority in some of these areas. This is a serious dispute and a break in the civic structure of our country. And it inevitably is going to lead to more protests and maybe increasingly angry and even violent protests.
Have you been affected, James, by the war in Ukraine? Very good point.
I think probably less so than others, Mike. And yeah, I think I'm not sure I was in the thoughts of the Prime Minister when he made those remarks.
Yeah, but he said no, there is not one family or community that hasn't been affected. That's just not true.
I think he probably meant there was, citing public opinion, the fact that everyone's been emotionally affected rather than perhaps, completely.
Yeah, but that's also not true. I can see that you're, trying to defend him, and I know it's a difficult.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Rachel Reeves is now so desperate for cash as the economy tanks, she's considering a brutal annual tax based on the value of your home, and potentially for the first time in history, you may pay tax on the sale of your primary residence. We'll get to that. Do you know who we're going to talk to about that? We've got a brilliant booking. Samara and Matt did a great job. We've got one of the country's leading entrepreneurs, Charlie Mullins, founder of Pimlico Plumbers. He's on at 8 and he's not happy. In fact, he's so unhappy, he's fled Britain because of the taxes. He's one of the 16,000 millionaires that have scarpered. Stay there, Sir Michael Fabricant. I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. I'm delighted to say that Gary in Leicestershire is with me now. Hey, Gary, how are you?
Hello.
Hey, Gary, welcome to Talk. Lovely to have you. What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, yeah, my thoughts have changed. I've just been reading some stuff about how the grounds that Yvette Cooper tried to introduce into this Epping thing today, and every single ground, I'm not going to go through them because I'm not going to waste your time or mine, and it was all about the rights of the migrant and the inconvenience to the government. And my point, my initial point, the point I rang in on was what needs to happen now. I'm a Reform member and I will vote Reform, but it's now down to a Reform council and Tory councils off the back of this to be speaking to the legal team who are paid a lot of money and start piling in legal actions to close every hotel. And the reason for that is because then the government are going to be absolutely boxed into a corner. Yvette Cooper, using the might of our taxpayers' dollar, will have to appoint QCs on £500 a day and a refresher.
And the rest?
And the rest, yes, plus expenses and a free lunch, to come up with a case, and it's going to have to be a big case, because these individual actions will force the government to actually say, you know what, we're going to change the planning regs, it doesn't matter that it's not a hotel. No, hostels, they're cool, we don't mind. And they're going to we just got to box them into a corner. So you absolutely know that smashing the gangs, one in, one out, I want to protect the borders, all that nonsense is just a fallacy.
Stay on the line, Gary. Fascinated by what you've had to say. Sir Michael Fabricant, what's your reaction to what Gary had to say there? Box the government in.
I agree with Gary, actually, apart from one thing. He talked about hiring a KC for £500 a day. It's more like £2,000 an hour. And that's exactly what's going to happen. But what he says is dead right. It's up now to Reform and Conservative councils to take this judgment today as a precedent and pursue the whole thing with other areas too. Because it's not just the fact that money is being spent on these hotels. It's also the perception by local people that they are in danger from some of these people who have come over, because as you quite rightly say, Mark, they're not all lovely little children and women fleeing from persecution. If it were that, they would have actually applied for asylum in the normal, regular way that's always worked. They're not. They're young men, and some of these people don't come from backgrounds who respect women at all. And sadly, we've heard all this from events that have happened over the last year.
And Gary, the left tell us that this isn't happening. We're gaslit about these stories about, you know, the statistics around, you know, how some of these illegal immigrants view women and their behaviour. Of course, we do have you know, at the moment, a case against one particular inhabitant of the Bell Hotel who's being pursued and prosecuted for a crime against a young girl, a 14-year-old, a sexual assault. It's only anecdotal, Gary, but I was in Cornwall about 4 years ago, Newquay, and we were having dinner and chatting with a really nice waitress at the time. And she said, yeah, this place is not the same as it used to be. There's a migrant hotel up the road, and my young daughter cannot walk home on her own at night anymore. This is the Britain that seems to have befallen us, Gary.
There's two cases at Epping.
There you go. You're absolutely right. It's true.
And the reality is, and these guys, and it's all blokes, they have an attitude to women that's, you know, completely alien to the way we think. Yeah, I mean, I just despair. I just despair. And I want to bring it back to the point I wanted to make, because this debate can run on forever. You're only going to win if you use the system. They've used the system against us. So now a judge, and, you know, it was excellent. I tracked it a bit today, because there are people out there that are in the court that are following it and saying, the judge said, because Yvette Cooper appointed a KC, and Sir Michael is probably right, you know, it's 2K, 2.5K, however many K, well, good luck to him. But they appeared at the literal last minute and tried to introduce all these things, and all the points they introduced were all about protecting the migrant or protecting the government. And the judge said, no, you had your chance last week. It's 14 days to get them out. Now, that creates a mountain of pressure for the government, but I don't care. And the people of Epping don't care either.
There you go. Gary,
Gary,
I'm not going to stop you in your tracks, but with the clock's against us, but what a brilliant set of points. Gary, make me a promise. You're going to call me again, because really enjoyed your company this evening. Let me know what you thought of Gary's comment. Michael, you get the last word. How do you see all of this playing out in the next 4 years?
I don't know, but what I do know is that this government is toast. I cannot see that they can possibly recover from the lies, the incompetence, the deceit that's happened in this first year. And it's all very well Starmer saying, and with a whole litany of things, he says, I admit we got this wrong, we got that wrong, we got this wrong. You know, we know that Starmer is, I'm going to use a word, dork. I think that more or less a tool maker's son.
Michael,
and,
you are not a dork. Rachel Reeves wants to tax your house. That's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to the Home of Common Sense. We are Talk, we are in-app, we're online, we're on YouTube, and we are, of course, on the radio as well. It's Mark Dolan in for the legendary Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm with you tonight, tomorrow and Thursday. It is fantastic to be back at my spiritual home. The messages are pouring in and the calls as well, and a very busy hour to come. How about this for the world gone mad? A local authority has banned staff from using the terms husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. and ladies and gentlemen. Folks, stop the ride. I want to get off. The world has gone mad. We'll get to that very, very shortly. Britain is losing 8 pubs a week. And whilst it's obviously proof that the economy is on its uppers, does it also represent the erasure of our country's history and traditions? With local authorities tearing down flags of the United Kingdom and a lack of support from the government and local authorities for pubs, is this another assault on the way of life that we hold so dear? I'll be speaking to somebody very invested in that, a top pub landlord. I think that pubs should be exempt from a lot of taxation, a lot of business taxes, so that they can be preserved. Because let me tell you, if there's one thing I know about pubs, it's that when they're gone, they're gone. Luckily, I'm here to stay. Well, I mean, let's not get carried away until 10 o'clock. And it's wonderful to have your company. So listen, let's talk about Rachel Reeves now. Rachel from Accounts. We will get someone on to defend the Labour government at 9 o'clock. We have got a Labour MP, and we'll talk about Labour's record in government, and they'll be defending it fortuitously. We've got your calls as well. But first, the Chancellor of the Exchequer is now so desperate for cash, she's considering a brutal annual tax based on the value of your home. So scrap council tax, and you just pay a few £1,000s a year because you got a nice house that you had the temerity to buy all those years ago. And potentially for the first time in history, this government may introduce a tax on the sale of your main residence should you choose to sell it. Well, let's speak to one of the country's most respected and well-known entrepreneurs, the founder of Pimlico Plumbers and much besides, Charlie Mullins. Charlie, what a treat to have you on the show. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm all good, Matt. As you know, I left the UK because of Labour and all their robbing everybody. So I'm in Marbella, absolutely loving it. Wish I'd have done it years ago and not allowed sort of Labour government to keep robbing people and the working class people. What she's doing now is atrocious. She's robbing working class people again. She's talking about someone with a £500,000 house, which is nothing in London. It's like a one-bedroom apartment.
Yep.
How does she think these people got them? You know, they're working class people. They purchased the property. Now they're going to tax you on buying the property, tax you on selling the property. What it will do will freeze the property market up. It will freeze it up completely. It will stop people wanting to buy a property, and it will also, people like me and many others, it will drive or force us out of the UK even more. Because why would you have an house that you've paid tax on, and it's not necessarily made money, it's just built up over the years with appreciation of money, and now they're going to tax you when you sell it. Well, my advice to anybody, if you're thinking of leaving the UK, sell your house now before she brings it in, because she will bring this in very quickly. It's another way of robbing working class people. They're saying about, the idea is that they can raise money for local councils that are struggling. No, you're not raising money for local councils that are struggling. You're raising money for people that don't contribute to the UK, that are pouncing off the country, and that's why you're raising money.
And of course, Charlie, as you know, your main asset in life is the property that you own. And it's sacred, the idea that asset is never taxed should you sell it. And we really are reaching the point of no return if she pursues a policy like that, don't you think?
She will pursue it. There's no two ways about that. They've already been discussing it in Parliament. It's a done deal, I'm telling you. It's a done deal, what she's doing. She's skin, or the country's skin, because of all the money they keep giving away to people that are not contributing. It's already a done deal, and I'm telling you now, sell your house as quick as you can, get out of the UK, don't let this government have any more money to waste on people that are not contributing. Alfie Best, the gypsy billionaire, was on the TV on Sunday, and he made a point of saying that he's opening up more park homes, more residential property that's affordable for people. And what will happen is they will sell their big $500,000 one-bedroom flat or £1 million house. They will buy a lot cheaper on a park home, which is going to be a very nice place of living, and he will absolutely make a fortune because he can see what's coming with the government robbing working class people again. And he's come up with this idea of what he's going to do. And I'll tell you now, Labour and Reeves are jumping on it to stop people from selling before they buy on him. I'm telling you now, they're as crooked as anything. She needs to be put in prison, the Labour government, for thieving off of working class people.
Of course, that's quite strong language. You're entitled to your view, Charlie. She would argue she's inherited an economic mess from the Tories. But look, this is the home of free speech as well as common sense.
Mark, it doesn't matter where it's come from. You still don't go around robbing working class people. You know? And
of course, Charlie, not to interrupt you, but it's not just an assault on the working class. It's also an assault on wealth creators and rich people. And it seems that the left ideologically have a problem with people who have done well in life. Can you explain to this Labour government and anyone that's watching or listening that's on the left, can you explain why it is so devastating that this year 16,000 millionaires are expected to leave Britain? Why is that a problem?
Why is it a problem to the Labour government?
Why is it a problem for us? Because I read an article by a left-leaning journalist called Caitlin Moran. I don't know if you're familiar with her work. She wrote a piece in the paper and she said, millionaires are leaving Britain. Good riddance, she said. You're not welcome here if you're not going to pay your fair share. Can you explain to my viewers and listeners why that was such an idiotic thing to say?
Well, they're already paying their fair share. They're not moving because they're trying to avoid tax. What they're saying is enough is enough. You're forcing us out of the country, and people can go and work anywhere in the world now. And I'll prove that in Marbella, Dubai, work where you want and make money. And you know, they don't sort of tax you. They don't take the liberty with you. They actually encourage you. Well, every move that Rachel Reeves has made of increasing taxes has backfired. She thinks this will bring in more revenue. I'm telling you now, like everything else she's done on the increase, it will bring in less revenue. It will force out more wealthy people, or let's not call them wealthy people. Let's call them business people, people that create jobs, people that train people, people that help the country out. She's forcing more and more people out. And I'm telling you now, she should be put in prison. She is thieving and robbing the working class people. You cannot tax yourself. You cannot tax the country to beat growth.
I mean, Charlie, you can't jail someone whose policies you don't appreciate. I mean, I don't agree with Rachel Reeves. I think she's tanked the economy. I'm not sure that I'd necessarily incarcerate her. That might be a bit harsh.
I'm not looking for you to agree with me. I'm just telling you what's the truth. She is a thief, and she's robbing working class people of their money. They bought this house. It was an investment for them. Yeah. That's what they're going to give off of. They're going to give it to their children. She is now saying, I want 10%, I want 20%. What right has she got to keep taking working class people's money? They're already paying on their income. They're paying VAT when they buy stuff. They're paying when you purchase a property. Now she's saying, we're going to tax you when you sell it. What right has she got to do that? What right has she got to do it? All she's doing it for is because the country's skint. They've fallen into the trap of keep letting all these people in, keep giving money away to people that don't contribute, and now she's robbing people. But I guarantee you, more and more people will leave. The property market will freeze up, and unfortunately, buyers will not come into it now, knowing that they've got to pay that extra money, because if someone's selling a property and they lose 10%, they're going to put it on the sale price. I'm telling you, look, she's made some mistakes ever since she's been, which never made anything right. But I actually think this is the final nail in the coffin, and I honestly hope that they get rid of her immediately. The woman, honestly, I wouldn't. Well, I won't say what I wouldn't do with her. She would sell her granny if she could. And what she's doing now, it don't matter to me. I've been and gone. They will never get two bob out of me, the government again. I have a company in there. It's a family business. We fix in London. They unfortunately have to comply with the tax regulations, and that's what we do. But you would never get me starting up more business. If I'd known Labour was getting in, I would have never started up We Fix London. We'd have gone straight to Dubai on fire.
Now, of course, Rachel Reeves would argue that she inherited a deficit, a £20 billion black hole, and a disastrous economic legacy from the Tories. We can debate that all day long. Here's my question for you, Charlie. Do you want to give me an exclusive? If there was a change of government with the right policies, business-friendly and encouraging wealth creation, would you return to the UK?
You know the answer, Mark. I'll be back tomorrow.
Right.
If and when Reform get in and Nigel Farage is Prime Minister, because he understands how to create wealth. He understands to keep giving Ponces money for nothing. He understands how to get working people into work. Honestly, I've got nothing against her personally, but I cannot tolerate the woman. I mean, I won't say it. If she had anything to do with me, I'll poison her coffee.
Okay, well, I wouldn't recommend doing that. Of course, that would be a bad thing to do.
She's winding people up so much.
Yeah.
She's a thief. She's a robber. Why could she keep taking working class people? She's a liar. She said a little while ago, I'm not going to tax the working class people. How do you think these people get these houses? £500,000 house in London is nothing. It's a 2-bedroom flat, 1-bedroom flat. They've worked all their life to get it, and she's saying, I won't tax working class people. Where's she going to get the money from? I'll tell you what, they need to go, Mark. Honestly, I'm telling you. Well,
you are right. That they said, that, as you say, that they wouldn't tax ordinary working class people. Well, of course, the obligation on employers of national insurance contributions going up, that's passed on to the workers, and therefore it is a tax on working people. So that is a big fat lie. I completely agree with you about that, Charlie. As I say, I'm not, I think I'd leave her coffee alone. I wouldn't jail her, but I would like to see her evicted from number 11. Here's another question for you. You've employed so many people. Can you imagine, can you guess how many people that you've employed in your career as an entrepreneur? How many jobs, roughly, Charlie, do you think you've created?
Okay, we've had 1,200 apprentices on the previous company.
Wow.
1,200 apprentices, probably staff 5 to 10,000 maybe over the years.
So what that means, Charlie, is that you have enhanced the life of up to 10,000 people as a result of the business that you created from scratch. You, I believe, were an apprentice plumber. I think you left school without too many qualifications. And
without any.
Oh, without any. There you go. Well, it doesn't show because you're a very articulate man. If a little spicy at times, but good luck to you. So here's my question then. You've managed to recruit these people, and perhaps you've disciplined some of them and got the best out of them. And if they did not pass muster, they were out. And that's why Pimlico Plumbers was very successful, because of the high standards. No doubt the same at WeFix. What would you do about the worklessness crisis in Britain? There are currently 5 million working age people not active in the economy. How would you fix that?
Stop their benefits. Simple as that. If it's genuine, I'm all for giving people benefits, and the people that need the help should be given all the help possible. Anybody that can work and capable of work should go to work and not receive benefits just because they don't want to go to work or just because they can get more money. I don't know if you know, Mark, but there's a story coming out tomorrow about councils are employing somebody now to look into why council workers have 17 days minimum off from work on sick.
Yeah.
Well, it's obvious why. It's because they're paying them. It's because they're allowed to do it. It's because we've allowed it to happen. Can I just add this to you, Mark? The guy who is behind this this new scheme of taxing people when they sell their property, whatever his name is, I can't even think of his name.
Yeah, he's the guy behind the study, yes.
Yeah, but you know who he is? He's the guy that come up with the furlough scheme, right? How clever was that? Bankrupt the country, give people money for doing nothing. He's the guy that come up with that, and they've got this idiot coming up with this idea. You know, he had the furlough thing where people are borrowing money, never paid it back. So they've asked this clown to come up with an idea, and he says tax people on their property when they sell it. What an idiot.
I can't disagree with you on that. We are agreed. Charlie, do stay in touch. Obviously you enjoy the tax regime in Spain. What are the other perks?
Hold on, there ain't a tax regime in Spain. It's more expensive in Spain to pay tax. Okay, so I come here to avoid tax. I've come here because I'm not prepared to contribute any more money to give to people that are, you know, don't contribute, or poncing, or illegals, or so-called asylum seekers, or pests, or people that are just lazy. That's why I've come away from there. But I haven't come here because I pay less tax here. My businesses now, other businesses, are set up in Dubai. So it's not about the tax over here. As I say, we comply with all the tax regs, but I wish we didn't start the company up if I'd known Labour was getting in, and we're going to give it 12, we'll be 12 months going in October. Fortunately, we're doing very well because we run a very great business, and the people we sold the other company to, Americans, they're clueless. So that's why we're doing so well. But we will be going to Dubai and expanding it there because of people like Reeves and Labour government. I'm sorry for being annoyed. I'm just being honest of the real thing that's happening. We need to start standing up and saying to these people, stop taking the mick out of us, stop robbing us of our money, and start doing something to make us sort of want to be in the UK and create jobs and get people into work, and apprentices and youngsters. When I went, they would come up with this, he'll be back. It's like, no, I won't be back. I will never pay another penny tax in the UK while Labour government are in. And I will never pay tax or run another business in the UK until Reform are in and Nigel Farage. We need to start standing up. The country's skin, we're going bankrupt. I mean, what bit do they not understand about it?
Yeah, I know we live beyond our means, and any household understands that. Dr. Tim Lunig is the chap you were talking about, who's part of the think tank Onward. But Charlie, last word on Nigel Farage. You've got great faith in him. Isn't there a danger that the blob, the bureaucracy of this country, will thwart his efforts to transform the country? Is there also not a danger that he might go soft in power, as they often do?
Yeah, more than likely, it could happen. I mean, you know how crooked all these politicians are, and how they're going to get into you and threaten you. It's like this Lucy lady in jail. It's a get-up. It's nonsense. But they might not. They might get to Nigel. I don't think so. I think he'll be telling them, look, I'm going to do it my way, not your way. And that's what we need. People like Nigel Farage that are prepared to stand up for working class people and not put up with all this nonsense. But of course they might get into him. They might even threaten him with jail if you do this, you do that. But, you know, somebody has to stand up for it. And if there's any person that can, not one person can put the country right, but I think he could encourage people to come back into the UK and start businesses up again. We're not looking for anything for nothing. All we're looking for is to keep being robbed to pay for people that don't contribute.
Well, I tell you something, if Nigel Farage does win the election, he could do worse than having you in his cabinet. He has talked about using non-politicians with life experience. Charlie, lovely to see you again. Do stay in touch, and thank you for joining us on Talk.
It's good to see you back on the TV, mate. You deserve to be here. Me and you are drinking from the same teapot.
We most definitely are. I'll share a cup of tea anytime with you. Charlie, thank you very much. Fascinating there. Charlie Mullins, one of Britain's most successful and well-known entrepreneurs, who's actually on purpose paying quite high taxes in Spain because he cannot face paying any money into the Treasury as long as it's run by Rachel Reeves. I do think that Charlie's comments about poison in the coffee and jail was, you know, a bit strong for Rachel from accounts, our Chancellor. But listen, no one gets cancelled on my watch. He's entitled to his view. People will agree. And also, he's speaking figuratively. It's not literal, folks. He's making a point, and he made it passionately. What an interesting conversation. Your reaction, please. Do you agree with Charlie Mullins? 03444991000. How would you turn this country around? So many calls. We'll get to them before the end of the hour. But next up, Britain is losing 8 pubs a week. Is this by design? As flags of this country are being torn down by local authorities, is the neglect of the pub industry on purpose? And is it stripping away at the fabric of our country and our great traditions? We'll debate that next with a rather angry and maybe slightly merry landlord.
I don't know.
They take more territory, and again, our response is, okay.
Well, what do you think we should do?
You've been bad again.
Well, what would
we'll
you
let
suggest?
You keep
All right,
what's
your remedy then? If we declare war on them, have World War III? Is that what you want to do?
Well, ultimately, if Russia is gonna keep invading people, then yes.
Yes. Well, you want World War III. Dan Hodges wants World War III. Page 1 tomorrow morning, Daily Mail. Let's have World War III. Are you going to send your kids out to fight for you?
Well, Mike.
Oh, you've gone mad, Dan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So many messages, and very, very kind messages. I'm deeply touched. It's brilliant to be back in my spiritual home, the home of Common Sense Talk. And Alison has said, good to see you, Mark. When I was young, a long time ago, someone I knew was a civil servant and they were actually given 2 weeks sick leave, and no doubt it's even worse now. That's right, I've heard of civil servants that have been ordered to take their sick leave, otherwise that loophole would be closed. It was basically a kind of unspoken entitlement. How about this from Modi, the bandit man? I started off with a paper round at the age of 14 and I've been working ever since. I've seen it all. We're losing our Britishness. We need to be more proud of our country and work to make it great. Charlie's correct, says Phil in Doncaster. But I think the bigger picture is, as Charlie pointed out, to bring property value down to get on with the HMO scheme. Interesting stuff. Look, keep those opinions coming. Interesting there what the previous texter said about our national identity, because Britain is losing 8 pubs a week. And whilst it's proof of a failing economy, does it also represent the erasure of our country's history and traditions, with local authorities tearing down flags of the United Kingdom and a lack of support from the authorities for pubs? Is this another subtle assault on a way of life that we hold dear? Let's speak to the highly esteemed pub owner and restaurateur, Clinton Pugh. Hello, Clinton.
Hi, hello, Mark. Hello, everybody.
Lovely to have you on the show. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I just wonder whether the sort of liberal metropolitan elites that govern us and that control our public institutions and media don't think much of pubs, don't go to pubs, don't care about them, and maybe even are a little snooty about them and happy to see them go.
Well, I think you may be going a bit too far there, Mark, to be honest with you. I think there's many different factors that are causing the problem. I've never personally owned pubs, but I have owned bars and many restaurants over the years, designed and I developed them. At the moment have none anymore, because after Rachel Reeves announced her budget, I decided to dump my last restaurant in May, because I think it's now become virtually untenable for these businesses to operate. Now, obviously, my particular business was also stuck in a problem area because of LTNs that had caused horrendous problems for
low traffic neighbourhoods, these sort of basically ridiculous bollards that block the streets.
I had three units there and shops, and unfortunately it became untenable. Now, I could have traded it if we didn't have to have the increase in the national insurance contribution. You've got to realise that we're paying 20% VAT. There was periods of time where long periods of time we were paying collecting 17.5% VAT, and there have been periods of when we had 15% to help us get through and trade. It's a difficult industry. Don't forget, you've also got to realise that revenue on alcohol increased, was arranged to happen from around 2023. Now, that also caused a problem because, of course, you have to then, these prices again put onto the price of the bill, and then the increase of minimum wage. You've got to realise now, people of 21 years of age are on £25,400 a year, nearly, as a basic. And don't forget, if you're running restaurants and you do service charging, that also goes completely through the books now. So you add it all together, of course, it's becoming expensive for the customers to actually come. Now, well, also don't forget, people's attitudes to drinking changed. During COVID, a lot of people were probably drinking at home, and why not? Because you couldn't go out. Although there was a huge increase in turnover directly after we ended the COVID restrictions, the businesses, I think most businesses would obviously have done a lot better. But then you've also got to look into, Mark, the quantity of restaurants and sites. Lots of the retail sites which came vacant were actually taken over and turned into retail premises by the chains. Now, it got to the point where maybe a lot of our cities are they're just oversaturated with A3, which is pubs and restaurant sites. So there is going to be a fall and a decline. But unfortunately, the government's action and obviously the slow response of the Bank of England, I mean, the reality is to try and keep the interest high because of inflation, which is now being caused by our own government, by the increase in national insurance contribution, because obviously everyone has to try and pay the wages, which means they've got to put up the price.
And of course, the minimum wage going up as well.
Well, exactly. It's just compounds to the point where it's just not workable. A lot of little pubs, they struggled also to find staff. I mean, a lot of people do. And unfortunately, working in restaurants doesn't seem as fashionable as it was back in the 80s, 90s. And it's got to the point where it's become very, very difficult to employ the right kind of people to create the right kind of atmosphere. And if you then also look into the fact that it seems that 27% of the younger generation don't drink anymore, or a large percentage, something in the 20s, that's obviously going to have a knock-on effect. Although if you go to somewhere like Glasgow, which I visited recently because one of my daughters was on a course up there, they're still partying like it was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It might be something that's happening to the south. I don't think it's necessarily a deliberate action, but I do think our government, unfortunately, are not particularly the brightest of tickets, and they're certainly not getting out on the street to actually see what's going on. This is the trouble. You have the 20% VAT, the 15% national insurance contributions, the increased minimum wage, the inflation, and then the fact that the Bank of England held the interest rate so long, so high, all it's done is crippling the economy.
Well, it's devastating. And I think we know that the majority of people in hospitality are younger people. It's often their first job. It can be a stopgap at university or straight after when they graduate. So the national insurance contribution hike affected the hospitality industry particularly badly, and therefore young people. But just going back to my point, I'm just not sure that policymakers appreciate the cultural significance of the pub. And I also think that going to the pub is almost like a traditional working class pursuit. And I think that there are quite a few snooty people, in government and in the civil service who maybe just don't appreciate the significance of your local, and that when it goes, it's absolutely devastating. And Clinton, when it's gone, and it's not coming back.
I completely agree with you that it is very worrying, and I do feel that, probably with a lot of the restrictions of entering into cities and stuff, and also they're talking about increasing or decreasing the level of quantity of alcohol you can actually drink, which is obviously will have another restriction because it means that everyone will not be. Now, that's not saying there's any. I mean, obviously we don't want people drinking and driving, as obvious, but at the same time, we don't want to get it to the point like it is now in Spain, where I think you can't even have half a beer. It's got to the point where it's virtually getting so low that people, it's. But of course, also we want people's safety. I mean, it's a very difficult one. But the attitude about the pubs, I mean, the pubs have obviously changed. I mean, the original you will still find in London on certain corners and different places the classic boozer that people go to at 5 o'clock. Now, there will always be a few of those in cities, but of course they're decreasing. What we used to do in the old days when there was only BBC, ITV, people would have gone down the pub and played bar billiards and darts and Aunt Sally and interacted and sat there and chatted. And of course, when the introduction of the smoking ban, which is again you completely understand, but at the same time we could have had smoking rooms for those of the people that did enjoy a cigarette with their beer, because the reality is not as if they're not taxed hugely enough as well to actually compensate for any extra costs they're going to be up to the NHS. Now, I'm not advocating saying that everyone should be allowed to smoke in pubs and stuff. They shouldn't. But I think all these things will be adding up too. And then you've also got pubs that play continuous sports on television or some other stuff that is a distraction away from what the traditional pub was. So if you want the traditional pub, we don't want the televisions, we don't want all sorts of things, that interfere with the actual atmosphere. If you wanted to go and read a book, you don't want it blaring in the background. So there are many, many factors in this changing world of what the pub is. But I agree, I'm completely worried, like you are, that if we lose traditional pubs completely, it would be a shame, because it's this one country in the world, or the whole of the Great Britain, that have had these amazing establishments, and it would be very sad if we lost them.
Yeah, I mean, quite a lot's done to protect theatres and old cinemas and, churches as well. We understand the importance of some of these historic buildings. Well, I think that pubs should have a similar status, and it's the saddest thing in the world, isn't it, to see a pub that becomes housing, and you have the original name of the pub, and you think, oh, I'll go and have a quick cold one in there, and it's someone's apartment. It's been split up into flats, and that's I think the most awful thing to see. Do they deserve some kind of protection within the tax system so they can survive?
Well, I think what the government should do is probably reduce the VAT to 15%. Obviously these are really difficult times for anyone trying to run restaurants and pubs. And if they reduce it down to 15% at least, that would make a large difference of actually being able to have some money at the end. Because at the moment, I felt back when I decided to lose my last restaurant, the Casbah, sell it cheaply to get rid of it, I felt that all I was being was a tax collector. There was nothing left. There's no cream left on the cake. In which case, why would you want to be an entrepreneur to invest? Now, if that particular site would have cost 450, 500,000 to develop in the way in which I did it, why would you want to take a risk if you're not going to make any money? This is the same thing that seems to be happening across all businesses. There doesn't seem to be the incentive and the reason to want to start the business, because there isn't any money left to make. And if the government goes and increases taxation again, all it's going to do is kill the economy even further. Do you remember when the interest rates were 15.5%, because we were all staying, I think it was the European monetary system or something similar.
Yeah, ERM, that's right. Exchange rate mechanism.
Remember when John Major, there was posters on the side of the road saying, it's hurting, but it's working. Well, if you want to stop the baby crying, you don't strangle it, because of course you won't have a baby. It's the same with all these businesses. You can't just expect somehow that people like myself are going to carry on doing it just for the love.
No,
it's not tenable.
You're not mugs, and yet that's why we need entrepreneurs to be so crazy as to start a business, because upon that you have economic growth, which is national income, which pays for the doctors, the nurses, and all the rest of it. What a treat to have you on. The only problem is, Charlie, you've rather depressed me, and I feel I need a pint, but all the pubs are closed. Oh, sorry, Clinton. I feel like I need a pint now, but all the pubs are closed.
No, they're not. No, not
There's
yet.
a couple.
I'm sure you could find one in London, where I guess that's where you are.
Clinton, I don't know. I must have been on the source already. Sorry for getting your name wrong. Listen, it's been such a treat to have you on the show. And I do hope we get to speak again in the very near future.
I'm sure we will, Mark. All the best. But I do think that maybe that we do have a national treasure. We do need to get the support from the government. The government have to wake up. They've got to get out there and go and see what's going on. Just because they go out on a Friday, Saturday night and notice a place is busy, that doesn't mean to say it's making any money.
Not at all. We'll drink to that. Listen, Clinton Pugh, lovely to speak to you. Catch up soon. Clinton Pugh, restaurateur, former bar owner as well, with a rather depressing but consistent message, which is that if you tax people, it's subject to the law of diminishing returns. Next up, you're not allowed to call people Mr. and Mrs. or husband and wife anymore. Find out why after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Will we ever tackle illegal immigration? Danny is in the capital, London. Hi, Danny.
Good evening. I'd just like to comment on you doing a fantastic show. I love listening to this show, and it's nice to have you back. It's nice to have you back. Right, this is great news about the asylum seekers going to be ejected from the hotel. But I cannot believe that Yvette Cooper tried to intervene at the last minute. Doesn't she care about the mothers with their children? She obviously doesn't care. She showed her true colours. She has, hasn't she?
I'm afraid the messaging is very clear. And we have a human rights lawyer for a prime minister who seems to prioritise migrants over the indigenous population. Why else, Danny, would he scrap the Rwanda plan and stated that he would do so even if it worked?
But I just can't see an end to this now. Honestly, I love this country, but I just can't see a resolution to it. I know we all complain in your show, everyone complains, but what is the solution? Well, how are we going to stop it? How?
Well, what do you think about this, Danny? Would you like the next administration to obviously stop the boats, clearly, 100% and unilaterally, but what about net zero immigration? Would you vote for that?
Net zero, yes, 100%. We don't want them over. The country's full up, isn't it? There's no room for them anymore. The country is full up. And why all our taxes are going up to pay for people like Charlie Money said? The people who just don't work. Why should we pay for them? Why?
People often forget about the example of Denmark, Danny, who I was reading recently. They had their kind of Nigel Farage Reform UK moment 15 years ago, in which they all came to the conclusion that Denmark, which is a very unique Scandinavian country with a great tradition, great history, a small, quite homogenous population, they were being very negatively impacted by immigration. It was just affecting society, it was affecting the culture. There were concerns about safety. And so all of the political parties came together and agreed that we're going to close the door. And I can give you an extraordinary figure, which is last year, Denmark processed less than 100 asylum claims in a whole year. And this is a policy supported by left and right and centre in Denmark. They've had that conversation, and Danny, they closed the door. Should we do the same?
Oh, can we? Is it possible just to
We'd have to tear up an awful lot of legislation. We'd have to tear up the Human Rights Act. We would have to depart the ECHR. And goodness knows what other lawfare would be presented upon us, whatever next government gets in, to untie the bureaucracy so that we can actually close the border. So it'll be a mammoth task. It will take political will. But I do think, Danny, that if a party like Reform get a big enough majority, it could happen, because that would be the main reason to vote for them.
But they will stop. The bureaucracy will try and stop Reform getting in, won't they? They will. I know they will.
And possibly thwart them when they get there. I mean, the only issue with Reform is, are we putting our eggs in one basket, Danny? Is there a danger that this is snake oil from Nigel Farage, who's promising to do something that he cannot achieve? I mean, for example, stop the boats. Richard Tice and Nigel Farage have talked about, turning those boats around, ordering the Navy to turn the boats around. Well, then the boats sink and then people die. Is that really going to happen?
No, I do agree with you, but I'm so worried. I mean, I'm an old age pensioner now, and this country used to be, you could go about the streets. I wouldn't even look at my phone in the street. I'm frightened. If anyone rings me, I won't answer it in the street. I leave it in my pocket and wait till I get home. And that is sad. That is very sad.
It is. It's a terrible state of affairs. Danny, listen, let's keep this conversation going. Stay in touch with me, because I always want to hear your thoughts on this. We've also got Mark in Carlisle. Is there a sort of subtle war against pubs in this country? Do the elite that govern us have contempt for this traditional working class pursuit? Hello, Mark.
Hi, Mark. The pubs are not closing up here. The fire station has now been converted to a pub. The post office is now converted to a pub. Some of the banks are converted to pubs. As you know, we once thought there was 12 pubs on Botchergate. There's actually 21 now.
What happens if the fire station is a pub? What happens if there's a fire? If the post office is a pub, what happens if you want to send a letter? If the bank is a pub, where do you get your money?
Well, they've moved to other premises, but the original fire station, they've even got an advertisement for the pub on the tower where the firemen used to climb up. You know where it is. You used to hang it. There's a few pints for you with your name on it in this town, by the way, when next time you visit.
Is that right?
Your old stomping ground.
Well, listen, what I might do a show from Carlisle because it sounds like the place to be. I'll speak to the boss. I'll bring a transmitter with me. Why do you think pubs are growing in your neck of the woods?
There's licensing relaxations. The council seem to allow certain premises to be converted into pubs. And I suggest that the Labour Party headquarters in Carlisle should be converted to a pub. It will be better used these days.
I know. I mean, do you think that the authorities are allowing pubs to fall by the wayside because they don't understand and appreciate their importance? Because I spoke to a former bar owner, restaurateur Clinton Pugh, and he thought I was getting a bit carried away saying that this is a war on British tradition. But my view is that if you don't protect pubs, in a way you are willfully letting them go.
There's an attack on all small businesses, as you know. I'm not going to get too conspiratorial, but the only person who seems to be weathering it is Tim Martin, Wetherspoons, because he suffered all that loss in the COVID thing, and it cost him 300 million personally, etc. But the council are usually supportive in this area, but they're cutting everything apart from pubs because there's even you need to do a show about this, I'll help you. There's a village now where there's only a bus every 2 weeks.
Is that a fact? This is ridiculous. I mean, that's in a supposedly first world country.
I know. You need to do a show. I'll help you with it. And then we'll have a band on. We'll have nibbles. We'll have like streamers every 2 weeks. The old people can go out of the village to Carlisle, the big city, so they're cutting all the services except pubs.
It's an absolute shocker. Mark, at least you got good news on pubs, and I've got first dibs on a pint of Amstel when I see you, and I'll get the next round in, OK?
Yes, definitely.
What a treat. Thank you, Mark, for participating in this and cheering us up slightly with your good humour and the basically a kind of double-edged sword there. There are more pubs but less buses. We can't get things right in this country, can we? Listen, lots of feedback coming in about all the topics we've talked about. We have this from Russ in Wiltshire. Mark, great to hear you back on the radio. Regarding the new property tax, if it's in lieu of council tax, it's never going to be cheaper, is it? It's always going to be a revenue raiser. They just want to get more money from everyone who happens to own a house. Renters will just pay through higher rents. That's going to end well for the rental market once the landlords pass the costs on. How about this? Jackie. Good evening, Jackie. Thank you for this. Hi, Mark. Well done, financial expert Rachel Reeves. Taxing our homes means we will never leave. Why sell and move? And the housing market is dead. You see, you folks, you should be running the country, not Rachel from Accounts and our Prime Minister, the cervix-free Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer. How about this from... oh my goodness, yes, from a unnamed message. Mr. Dolan, I'm just wondering how many of the convicted foreign and domestic groomers have been rehoused. More likely they were allowed to return to their wives and children. Bill in Northumberland, Mark, the $64,000 question is, if the hotels are closed, where do they put these illegal immigrants? Tents could be a solution, great debate. This is the point. Yes, they shouldn't be in hotels, but they've got to go somewhere. They shouldn't have been here in the first place. If you can't control your borders, you're not a proper country. If you've got security tags on a jar of instant coffee, you're not a proper country. If my caller, who I spoke to earlier, I think it was Daniel, wasn't it, who doesn't want to take his phone out of his pocket in case it rings because it might get snatched out of his hand, you're not a proper country. We're not a proper country anymore. We're an embarrassing shambles. And I'm going to add to that with news that we're now not allowed to say husband and wife. We'll cover that story next.
they take more territory. And again, our response is, OK.
Well, what do you think we should do?
You've been bad again.
Well, what would
we'll
you
let
suggest?
keep
All
what
right,
you
what's your remedy then? If we declare war on them, have World War III? Is that what you want to do?
Well, ultimately, if Russia is going to keep invading people, then yes.
Yes. Well, you want World War III. Dan Hodges wants World War III. Page 1, tomorrow morning, Daily Mail. Let's have World War III. Are you going to send your kids out to fight for you?
Well, Mike.
Oh, you've gone mad, Dan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
What is this fresh hell? A local authority, a council, has banned staff from calling married couples husband and wife in case it causes offence. Make it make sense. Well, someone that will is Connie Shaw from the Free Speech Union. Hello, Connie.
Hi, Mark.
Thank you very much for joining us. What's the story here?
So a council in Greenwich has issued a very long document which they claim is just guidance as to what language their staff should be using. And as you say, one of the most ridiculous aspects of this is that they have been told that using terms husband and wife isn't the most inclusive way to speak, and so they should be using terms such as spouse and partner. And like I just said, they claim that this is guidance, but actually one of the statements in the document says that if you make a mistake and you really are sorry and apologise, you won't make the same mistake again, which is a very strong thing to say, because it's suggesting that you really are quite an immoral person if you accidentally use language that makes some people feel offended. Using husband and wife apparently is one of those terms, and they say that it's not guidance, but actually we know that if there is this so-called just guidance, that will compel people to change their language and make people concerned that they're basically walking on eggshells and not know whether they're accidentally going to offend someone or not with these basically made up concerns. I'm sorry, but the average person is not going to be concerned about this, and actually most people I think would agree that this is ridiculous.
Most definitely, and I'm sure you're the same as me, Connie. You can identify however you like, you can sleep with whoever you like. I'm an ultra libertarian, but there's a problem with this policing of language, isn't there?
Yes, and you're drawing on something very important there, which was going to be my second point, that actually language is only useful if we can use it to actually convey the truth. And more often than not, it's very important that we are extremely clear with our language, especially when it comes to sexed terms. It is important to be clear about whether you're talking about men or women in all aspects of life, but especially if you loosen when it is that you're allowed to refer to whether someone is male or female, you then get to a situation when women cannot say, no, that is a man and he's not allowed into my space. That's how we end up with rapists in males' prisons. It may seem like a stretch, but you go from saying, oh, this man, he's actually a trans woman, so we need to refer to her as a woman. That's how you end up with situations where women cannot say anymore that he's a man and he should not be in my space.
Well, that's right. I mean, we could enter the very Orwellian scenario, couldn't we, Connie, that if misgendering became illegal, then you could be arrested for saying something which is the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that there are not, it wouldn't surprise me, actually, if someone was arrested. And I'm sure there have been cases. Obviously, Kelly J. Keane got a visit from the police for being untoward towards paedophiles. But we know that people lose their jobs for this. One of our current cases, which we'd be very grateful for your viewers' support on, is a case, a man called David Toshak in Scotland. He was training to be a police custody officer, and he was sacked on the spot when he was asked whether he would call a male prisoner she, her, if he identified as a woman. And when he said that he wasn't comfortable doing so, he got sent out of the room, marched into a meeting, and within half an hour was told that he wasn't suitable for the role.
And of course, if you follow this language, then you're adhering to a certain ideology, and it is gender identity ideology, isn't it? It's the principle that essentially, there's no such thing as biological sex, which is a view that's been contradicted by the Supreme Court of all organisations. So obviously this is, quite concerning. your own personal story relates to this, doesn't it? Because you had a very difficult time at university. You were working at the university radio station, and I understand that you were suspended by the university radio station for simply pointing out that there are two biological sexes, which is the position of the Supreme Court. But it was a major headache for you, wasn't it?
Yes, well, what's funny about my case is that they were never able to specify exactly what it was I had said that was resulting in my suspension. I think probably because even those people who run the student union knew that it would be unlawful to discriminate against me due to the fact that my beliefs are protected in the Equality Act, and therefore you cannot discriminate against someone for believing that biological sex is real, immutable and unchangeable. So it's not like I was going around shouting "he's a man" every time I saw a bloke in a frock walking around campus. I'd simply had a conversation with a detransitioner about her experience on puberty blockers, and I'd also expressed the fact that I didn't think that men should be in women's prisons and that we shouldn't be telling children that they're in the wrong body. But apparently that meant that I was putting other members of the station at risk, putting their health and safety at risk.
And all of those things that you've said does not make you anti-trans?
Well, I personally am. It's difficult because that phrase is used to demonise people, but ultimately I am opposed to transgender ideology. But like you say, people can say that they identify however they want, fine, but you cannot compel me to say that I believe in your identity as well. Yeah,
that's it. Or sacrifice the safety of women, the integrity of women's sports, and the importance of female-only spaces, in order to essentially, support this idea that gender is fluid. And also, I mean, do you think, with this idea of a husband and wife or whatever, that is there something else at play here where, with the policing of this language, an effort to change society, or something that's often referred to as social engineering, is that an exaggeration to say that this is social engineering?
I would say in general, what's really quite strange about these so-called guidance documents is that they are trying to socially engineer people's interactions with each other. I mean, this story is not actually quite surprising, because when you just search up councils being woke, which is this headline, you get lots of different stories of lots of different councils deploying these documents of guidance as to how you're meant to speak. And one story last year was Surrey Council. They were trying to suggest that you shouldn't be using language that might not be familiar to people whose first language wasn't English, such as the phrase "it's a piece of cake." Now, in my head, I think, well, if I had come to a different country and I was working in Spain, for example, and the people that I was working with were speaking in Spanish and they used a phrase that I wasn't familiar with, I'd want to use that opportunity to become more familiar with the native language of the country that I had moved to work in. Now, why isn't that the attitude that we're adopting here, rather than, we need to be sensitive to the fact that someone might not know what that means? Why can't we say, well, actually, if someone doesn't know what it means, just explain it to them and they can improve their English, which we should be encouraging for everyone who comes to this country and it isn't their first language.
Connie, more power to you for calling out this madness, and more power to the Free Speech Union, who have an excellent membership. It's worth every penny, because without figures like Connie Shaw and the Free Speech Union, we really are in a dark place. Connie, do join us again soon. Thank you for your time. What a conversation, and what a smart lady. Laura Jane is in Hampshire. Hello, LJ.
It's really amazing to have you back on Talk. I do hope they find you a permanent spot.
Oh, that's so sweet of you, Laura Jane. Well, look, that's very kind of you, and I'm very happy to be back. I've got to tell you that.
Yeah. I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall all the time. We hear everybody suddenly coming in on the act about Epping, particularly Robert Jenrick and people like that.
Chris Philp. Are they a bit late to the party, Laura Jane?
When you think about what they did during their 14 years, I just can't believe that they still think if they smarm up to us with words, empty words, that they're going to get voted in. They still don't get it. But what worries me is that also people don't get that not only do Labour they say, well, Labour doesn't have a plan. It does. It is slowly destroying the Britain as we knew it. And I genuinely, if you want to call me a conspiracy theorist, you can go ahead, because I'll accept any of that, because the stuff that's going on is beyond Orwellian. And, you know, it's just unreal that people still don't get it. Yes, they have a plan. They want to destroy us bit by bit through all the things that we've seen going on in the last year, and you know, digital ID coming in. There's some really scary stuff out there, and people. I'm sorry to be a doom monger, because, you know, Epping has been such a success. Until the Labour government, until whatever she's called, Bulls' wife, Mr.
Yvette Cooper, yeah.
Yvette Cooper. I really do seriously feel very, very worried about our country, and I think we're all walking blindly into this.
But do you not think this goes beyond a Labour project, Laura Jane? Do you not think we've had this for maybe 5 to 10 years, and that it's really the establishment rather than exclusively Labour who have, you know, almost like a globalist policy, open borders, net zero?
Yeah, globalist, absolutely. But as we can see, Mr. Starmer is not looking into his country to see he's looking at it as a world problem. And yeah, it's scary, not a problem, but he is looking at it as a world. He wants to be on that stage as a world leader. He's not interested in Britain and the British people.
Laura Jane, you spoke so succinctly. I wish we had longer, but promise to call me again. And thank you for your good wishes. It is great to be back and great to hear your words of wisdom. Listen, another big hour to come. We've got a former Labour candidate who's going to defend the record of this government. So I hope LJ is going to hear that and hear him out. But we'll have a look at just exactly how bad things are in the country. Also, stag and hen do's. Are they a bit over the top these days? A big hour to come. Keep it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. We're on the radio, we're in app, we're on YouTube, we're everywhere. This is Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Kevin O'Sullivan. Tonight, tomorrow and Thursday. 4 nights only while stocks last. Listen, it's lovely to have your company, and we've got a big hour to come. I'll be taking your calls. Will we ever fix this immigration crisis? Why has it happened? How do we stop it? Are there dark forces at work? I've got another story for you, by the way. Elton John, do you remember him? I won't sing. I don't want to lose listeners and viewers. Elton John and the comedian David Walliams have upset a British Hindu group in France by taking over the whole restaurant, which meant that their booking was cancelled. So all these ladies had flown from the UK to France for the Hindu for a couple of drinks, and maybe to ogle at topless men, as the ladies do on a Hindu, if that's still allowed. But the Hindu was cancelled. So are stag and Hindus getting over the top? Why have you got to go abroad and spend a fortune to have your stag or hen? What's wrong with a trip to your local curry house and going to a nightclub for a bit of a boogie? So we'll discuss that with someone that knows that side of things inside out. And I'll tell you about my stag do. And I've got a couple of stories, a couple of choice stories. Amazingly, by some miracle, I'm still married. I survived the stag. But folks, we'll get to that, and Elton John's in trouble. But can we first talk about this Labour government? Their record in office, it's been just over a year. Growth is down, inflation's up, unemployment's up. Have they got anything right? Let's get the views of Labour campaign, a former candidate, prospective parliamentary candidate, I understand, and also, I will say, an expert on rail infrastructure, Christian Walmar. Hi, Christian. Welcome to the show.
Well, I'm very pleased to be here, but not in my usual role, but we can talk things other than railways.
Well, that's it. I've enjoyed discussing rail with you, and I've often wished that you were responsible for our rail strategy over the last few years, particularly given the cost and the major white elephant that HS2 has proved to be. But can we talk about this Labour government? They're a white elephant too, aren't they, that Britain can't afford?
No, look, I think that they've been given somewhat of an unfair press. Yes, they've made some major cock-ups. I mean, starting your government with scrapping winter fuel allowances, then kind of trying to reduce benefits to disabled people. And so, I mean, you couldn't really think of worse PR. But behind the scenes, certain things have improved, like the NHS waiting lists have gone down. They've launched a lot of breakfast clubs. They're restarting Sure Start, which I think the most egregious thing that the Tories ever did was to stop Sure Start, which was a really important way that people with less money, their kids, had a better start thanks to Sure Start. So, look, we're full of the headlines about illegal immigrants, and hopefully you're going to discuss that later, and I don't have to kind of cover it. But there are things that are happening that are steady progress. And I'm not saying that that includes Labour's PR team, who I must say really should be entirely sacked.
Is it PR, Christian, or is it policy? Rachel Reeves' now infamous budget, which saw the cost of government borrowing rise. Gilt yields are a whole percentage point higher than they were in the aftermath of Liz Truss's mini budget. Inflation's up and economic growth is down. Unemployment is up and job vacancies are down. So, in what way is that stabilising the economy? How is that progress?
Well, I think that some of that is a legacy, and I'm not one of these people who say everything was down to the Tories, but they did leave a big gap. I think the big mistake that Rachel Reeves made was not to reverse the national insurance cuts that Jeremy Hunt had done, which affected people, but instead affected employers with her national insurance increase. I think that was a very big mistake. But, inflation is around the same, actually. It's just gone up and then it's gone down and then it went up slightly.
Well, I think it was around 2% at the election in July of last year, which was target, and that was Rishi Sunak's great achievement.
Well, I've always thought that it's rather daft to have this 2% target all the time if there's a lot of unemployment. That I'm an old Keynesian, actually, I'm afraid, out of fashion these days, but I'm a believer in actually spending money to stimulate the economy, and the government is, to some extent, trying to do that. And Look, just to talk about one success is the railways, where performance has improved. They are renationalising it, which is a popular policy. And those companies which have already been renationalised are actually functioning better than their private predecessors. So, it's a matter. It is partly a matter of presentation. And you know what really worries me about this is that there is an attitude towards politicians which is, increasingly cynical. And, most of these people are actually trying their best. They're not kind of just there to make money and feather their own nests and whatever. Most politicians, I include most Tory politicians with this as well, that they are actually trying to improve things. And I think we have to stop being entirely cynical about their efforts to deal with it. The problem of illegal immigration is not something that is Labour's fault or even the Tories' fault. It's a worldwide problem that is incredibly difficult to deal with. It's partly as a result of wars and climate change and all sorts of things are pushing people, to cross the Channel or into Europe. These are fundamental problems which have to be addressed on a national basis, an international basis, and instead we make cheap political points out of them and people kind of shout outside hotels where there's asylum seekers when actually there are very fundamental issues at play here.
I mean, you mentioned these migrant hotels. We know that the Bell Hotel in Essex has two particular residents of that hotel are now being pursued for charges of sexual assault on local women. This is not a good look. I mean, you cannot just say that people are point scoring here and it's politicians. What would you say to my viewers and listeners who are horrified by the sight of people arriving on dinghies and running for the hills, throwing their phones into the water as they cross the channel, and ultimately becoming a burden on society and having an impact on local communities?
Yes, but how do you stop them? And one of the things about Brexit is that it actually made it more difficult for us to deal with the French and our European partners. And that's one of the reasons why there's been more of them. But what actually would you do if you were Minister responsible for immigration? What would you do? Would you try and sink the boats? Would you try and chuck them back in the sea? I mean, what can you do? It's a very difficult problem. I mean, at one point the Tory government put out some gunboats, but that was clearly just a show for a show. There are very difficult issues to deal with.
Well, I would do several things. I'd reinstate the Rwanda plan, which the Irish Taoiseach said was working, because even the threat of the Rwanda plan before it started was seeing migrants going to the Republic of Ireland rather than the UK. The second thing I would do is I would detain people that enter the country illegally because they've broken the law in doing so. I would also change the legal structure within this country so that people could not use human rights lawyers to gerrymander the system to stay. Those are three loopholes that I would immediately close just for starters.
The Rwanda scheme cost £400 million and didn't deport a single person.
Well, it didn't start.
And it was never even going to deport more than about 250 people. And it was
Why did your mate Keir Starmer say he'd scrap it even if it worked? Has anyone ever stood on a political platform, Christian, of saying they'll scrap a policy that works? I mean, that's Alice in Wonderland time, isn't it?
But it didn't.
That's through the looking glass.
Let's stay off immigration because it's a intractable issue. Can you not accept that? To a large extent, the Labour government gets a hard press because because the press is dominated by right-wing newspapers who put out crazy stories. Like, for example, another example from my field. The war on motorists. I mean, there isn't a war on motorists. What there is a change in policy in towns and cities that is directed more towards people, walkers, pedestrians, cyclists, public transport users, rather than motorists.
That's a war on motorists. Low traffic neighbourhoods, speed bumps, 20-mile-an-hour zones, car tax,
which save lives.
Fuel duty. It's a war on motorists.
How many lives have been saved in Wales by the 20-mile-an-hour zone? 100 people have not been seriously injured or killed because there's 20-mile-an-hour zones in towns in Wales. And I've just been driving in Wales, and actually people actually obey it. and they slow down and they make it safer. That's not a war on motorists. It's a sensible policy designed to kill fewer than 1,600 people get killed on the roads every year. One of our main aims of society should be to reduce that total. And if that requires people driving at 20 rather than 30, I think that's a very small price to pay. And it's not a war on motorists. That's a completely meaningless concept.
Well, all of our city centres, it's harder now to drive into them. Obviously, in the UK, you pay a congestion. Sorry, in London, you pay a congestion charge. You've got the low traffic neighbourhoods, which means that some people cannot enter their own street.
Yes, they can. No, there's no low traffic neighbourhood where you can't enter your own street. You might just have to enter it from the other direction. Yeah. There's actually no streets which are no-go areas.
For half an hour.
And the congestion charge was introduced nearly 20 years ago. Nobody talks about it. Nobody thinks about it. It reduced the amount of traffic in London, the ultra-low emission zone. Nobody talks about that anymore. That has actually improved emissions. What is your answer to these? That what you allow cars to run right down every street at 50 miles an hour, and you don't have any restrictions on your emission zone? Is that
what I would do? What I would do? I certainly wouldn't have a ULEZ policy, because that punishes people at the lower end of the economic ladder who have older cars. It still works very well. If you've got a 12-year-old Volkswagen Passat diesel that's still running, you're entitled to keep it. I don't understand how getting rid of that and buying a new Tesla is going to save the planet. But here's the question I've got for you, Christian, okay, which is, when is Labour going to start to be successful? When are they going to grow the economy? When are we going to see these green shoots? Because I will give you that the Tories made a Horlicks.
There was a 0.4% growth in the last 3 months.
0.3. Get your facts right, Christian. 0.3.
0.7.
And that's half in 12 months. It's been halved in 12 months.
And it's 1 month's one quarter's figures.
Okay.
It's still growth. It still means that things are increasing, and one hopes that sunnier times are coming. And indeed, it must be noticed that I think people I talk to randomly, like in my trip through Wales the other day, are generally more happy with the situation than they might have been a year ago.
Happier but poorer. Can I ask you the latest YouGov poll?
No, richer. Smaller amount, but richer.
Keir Starmer's government approval rating has dropped to -56, Christian, the same level Rishi Sunak's government hit just before the general election. Is that because of right-wing newspapers?
It's partly due to that, but partly because they've made some bad mistakes. No,
do you think my viewers are that stupid? Do you think my viewers and listeners are so thick that they read a newspaper and that changes their opinion? No, my viewers and listeners are struggling. They cannot believe food prices. They cannot believe the crime. They don't like Keir Starmer's double standards and his U-turns.
Crime has actually reduced, right? And this
no one reports it because there's no point.
No, that's not the point. That's not provable. The figures show that crime has reduced. So this whole idea that everything is getting worse is a notion that is put out day after day after day by the press, which is then picked up by the BBC.
And Starmer did it when he took office, when he taught the country down, which is why we flirted with recession.
I think that was a mistake, but we haven't had a recession, things I think are beginning to look up. I think one has to view this optimistically. It's a very tough ask that the Labour government got by having a big black hole, and it's beginning to turn things around, but slowly. Just look at the NHS waiting list, which are going down.
Do you think, therefore, that Labour could win the next election? Are you that confident that things can improve and the public will go, do you know what? It was a bad start, bad couple of years, but to be fair to Sir Keir, he absolutely delivered in the long run. Do you think that's possible?
It has happened before. John Major won the 1992 election. It was very, very surprising. The point is, I don't think that reform actually has the legs to form an overall government. And so, therefore, we might end up with some sort of coalition of Labour, Lib Dems, whoever, which I think is more likely than a coalition between Reform and the Tories, because they absolutely hate each other. But look, it's 4 years away.
But you've just thrown the towel in. Christian, you should have said, yes, this is going to be a very successful Labour government and we will have a stonking majority. Instead, you've conceded that the best Labour can hope for is a hung parliament.
No, I'm saying it's one option.
He's thrown the towel in.
Of course, Labour might win.
He knows it's over.
But, sorry?
You know it's over. You know, I can see it in your eyes, Christian. I know when you look like you've lost the argument.
No, not at all. I think there's less hope of less expectation that we'll form a form of government than anything. Actually, I presume that's what you're hoping for.
Well, I'm not hoping for anything. All I want, I'll be honest with you, I'm not tribal. Every election I vote for a different party. All I want is illegal immigration to end. I want sensible levels of legal net migration, which are high-skilled people that will contribute to the country and who will coalesce with our culture. I want low taxes so that we can encourage businesses to create wealth, which pays for the national health service.
Where would you cut services like education?
Oh, first of all, I would
defense and whatever.
Slash. It would be a bonfire of not just bureaucracy, but of public sector.
They've tried that in America, and it hasn't proved very popular.
No, well, listen. Let's hope someone can crack the code. Christian, what a treat!
You'd be the Elon Musk of the government, would you?
Yeah, I'd get my chainsaw out, most definitely. Yeah, I would. Let's hope that I don't go the way of Musk, though, because it's a checkered record he's got, isn't it? Christian, what a treat to have you on the show. I do hope we can speak again soon. You've spoken very enthusiastically about the Labour government, and it's only fair that we hear both sides of the argument. My thanks to Labour campaigner, former prospective parliamentary candidate and rail expert Christian Walmar. We're going to get to your calls very shortly, but after this, an outrageous story about Elton John, which may well destroy his national treasure status, and hen parties and stag do's. Are they a bit over the top now? That's next.
They take more territory, and again our response is okay.
Well, what do you think we should do?
You've been bad again.
Well, what would
we'll
you
let
suggest?
You keep
All right,
winning
what's your remedy then? If we declare war on them, have World War III? Is that what you want to do?
Well, ultimately, if Russia is gonna keep invading people, then yes.
Yes. Well, you want World War III. Dan Hodges wants World War III. Page 1 tomorrow morning, Daily Mail. Let's have World War III. Are you going to send your kids out to fight for you?
Well, Mike.
Oh, you've gone mad, Dan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm still getting the hang of this. We're doing the Stag Do Elton John story after the next break. Apologies. Basically, Sir Elton John, the Rocket Man himself, emptied a restaurant in the south of France so he could have a semi-private gathering with the comedian David Walliams. I mean, he might be a musical genius, Elton John, but he's got strange taste in friends. And they basically closed this restaurant, and there was a hen do booked of ladies who were going to fly, who did fly to France for this lovely posh dinner for their hen do. And they couldn't go because the restaurant was closed for Sir Elton and their booking was cancelled. But I want to know, you know, these hen do's and stag do's, are they over the top now? Do you really want to fly to another country and spend thousands of pounds to celebrate your nuptials? I think it's ridiculous. But we'll do that in the next part. Millions of calls to get through. But first, some voice notes. And Kieran in Tring, who's a little bit worried about the Reform UK project.
Hey, Mark. It's great to see you back on the TV, mate. Excellent stuff. I used to go down to your old man's pub years ago, play some pool.
Wow.
Listen to DJ Derry on a Sunday. Fantastic times. Beautiful.
Oh, man.
Listen, the same thing's happening with reform now, unfortunately, that's been happening to the Conservative Party for the past 30 years, is that all these defectors and these wets are joining reform and they're softening reform's approach to policy. You can see it. Unfortunately, this is the establishment working at its most sinister level. They will, like Trojan horses, they'll infiltrate anywhere that they see an opportunity. And reform, if they've got any sense, they will banish these lunatics to the outer galaxy as soon as they possibly can. Top man, Kieran in Tring.
No, Kieran, you are the top man, and I cannot believe that you used to go to my dad's pub, Sir Robert Peel, in Camden, Kentish Town in North London, and what an honour that you were a patron of the Peel, because only the finest folk used to visit that pub, and you're one of them. So, Kieran, thank you for that. Thank you for the kind words as well. Dave is worried about what happens to our kids.
Good evening, Mark. Dave here. Nice to see you again, mate. When you tell your children to beware of strangers, there's a reason for that. But now you tell your children to beware of strangers, you get called a xenophobe, or that's the posh word, or you're called a racist. Keep up with your work, mate. Fight the fight.
Well, Dave, you're absolutely right. The reason why the grooming gangs scandal happened is because of political correctness and a refusal to understand that this was a very particular population that were committing these crimes, and they were Pakistani Muslim men in almost exclusively. And I spoke to a lawyer, Dave, on my previous show, who said that he believes that they're in excess of 250,000 women may have been attacked in the last 2 decades as a result of political correctness, turning a blind eye and trying not to be, in inverted commas, racist or far right. But listen, everyone's far right now, aren't they? I mean, the Archbishop of Canterbury is probably far right. I reckon Anton Deck. Do you think Anton Deck are far right? I think they probably are. I think Captain Birdseye, is he a bit far right? Well, he's white, isn't he? He's got white beard. He's too white for my liking. Captain Birdseye, he'd be cancelled now. How about this from Judy, who is bleak in her outlook regarding immigration? Go for it, Judy.
Good evening, Mark. It's Judy from Altops, West Yorkshire. This government will never stop immigration, legal or illegal. They love it. The more the merrier. Keir Starmer's busy keeping his human rights lawyers' mates in work. They're making a fortune. They could stop it tomorrow if they want to, but they don't want to. And we've all seen Yvette Cooper holding that little sign, refugees welcome here, and that's what she thinks. The problem is, allowing all these people into in this country, it doesn't affect them, not one iota. So they cannot see the problem. They just think us plebs are racist. End of story. Thank you.
Judy, what an articulate message. And I really hope that Gary Lineker is listening right now to hear what you've said, because it isn't just the liberal political establishment, it's media figures as well, isn't it? Well-paid journalists, people on the radio, people with newspaper columns, people that publish books, pop stars, you know, they're all so rich. And you're so right, Judy. What they have is these luxury beliefs, the consequences of which they are insulated from. Judy, what a great voice message. Give me a call. Love to chat to you sometime. And now let's hear James again on the migrants.
Hi, Mark. James Tower Hamlets. So we can't put them in camps because that's uncruel when there's going to be people who protest and they don't like it. So why don't we just do a system like this? All the people who want the migrants and feel sorry for them, they're the ones who can pay for them. And all us who don't give a toodly what, you know, we don't have to pay for them out of our taxes. We don't have to go work all day and pay for them. And all these lefties, or whatever you want to call them, who do want them, they can pay for them and they can put them wherever they want in there, as long as they pay. But and I'll stop paying. How about that system?
Well, it's interesting what you've said there, James, because you can see in America where they have various, obviously they've got 50 states, some of them are Republican, some of them are Democrat. And it's interesting how these sort of woke leftist policies are backfiring so badly in democratic states like California and New York, where they've got migrant crisis because they're like sanctuary cities, and you've got homelessness, you've got people defecating in the streets, taking drugs. These liberal cities are dying. And I was in the United States just a few weeks ago, witnessed it with my own eyes. High taxes as well. Meanwhile, in the red states, the Republican states, they have economic growth, they've got law and order, and they don't tell people that you can't say Mr. and Mrs. or husband and wife. So, James, thank you for that. I think what's worth pointing out, though, is that Britain has always accepted refugees and people in need. And we had the chaotic Afghanistan withdrawal. We've had the Ukraine war. We're a country that's accepted people fleeing war and persecution. But the point is that the illegal immigration is a complete subset of that, because that's people breaking the law, predominantly economic migrants with aspirations for a better life. Well, we could give a better life to 3 billion people, but that's not going to work practically, is it? So what's ironic is that not tackling this issue has made people allergic to any kind of refugee scheme, which is bad news for the people who would deserve sanctuary. And that's why this policy has backfired so badly. Mark is in South Wales. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mark.
How is South Wales tonight? Where exactly are you in South Wales?
I'm in a little village up the valleys called Blaengarw, just kind of outside Bridgend.
Nice. Oh, I know Bridgend is gorgeous.
It's not bad. It's lovely up here. Beautiful.
No, nice. What about this immigration? Are we overstating the problem? Because Christian Walmer, who's a Labour campaigner that was on the show earlier, I think suggested really that there's too much focus on it. You'll never fix it. It's a global problem, Mark.
Well, I think there is a problem of focus. I find it hard to believe that this current government is so inept on migration. Then it struck me, what they've successfully done is focus all of our attention on the small boats, the 50,000 people who've come, the costs of accommodating them, etc. And meanwhile, quietly, in the background, unremarked, unreported on, there are hundreds of thousands of people arriving every year through so-called legal means. I mean, do you know how many have come in since the Labour Party came to power? I certainly don't. I know you were saying to Michael Fabricant earlier on that 1 year under the Tories, there were 1 million.
Yeah.
Now, and of course, some of these legal methods are open to abuse. We all know about these so-called colleges who advertise across the world. People send their tuition fee, get their student visa, arrive, never attend a lecture, disappear to the black economy. Not so long ago, there was a story about people coming on care worker visas who we've never, ever been able to trace them ever having a job in the care centre, and they've equally disappeared. The other week, there was a story that the Home Office had lost track of 150,000 people. Now, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people coming, and against that, the small boat migrants are literally a drop in the ocean, yet nobody's talking about it. And it's these sheer numbers that are changing the face of Britain.
I completely agree. The elephant in the room is the legal net migration, isn't it? The stat earlier, Mark, that 1 in 60 Brits entered the United Kingdom last year.
Horrifying.
It's just a completely ham-fisted approach. Mark, please call me again soon. Lovely to hear your words of wisdom there, and enjoy gorgeous Bridgend. Karen is somewhere lovely as well. She's in Bournemouth, which is a very nice part of the world. Hello, Karen.
Hiya.
Now, Karen, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, to me, the elephant in the room is the fact that the government, under a super injunction, seems to be the biggest people smugglers out of all of them.
Now, when you say the people smugglers, you feel that the government are complicit in this illegal immigration racket?
They've been spending a year and a half smuggling people in, not telling us about them, giving them homes.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't that many people in Afghanistan working for the British. Now they're talking about bringing in a load from Gaza. Now, the only people that are going to be allowed out of Gaza will be Hamas. So are we going to bring a pile of Hamas over?
Well, I completely agree. And it's interesting that Egypt and Georgia would not accept anyone from Gaza. Why is that? Because the fear of terror in their midst.
Well, when they've done it before, it's caused no end of aggravation. So they learnt their lesson on round one. But they, you know, as far as I know, they're probably still bringing them in from Afghanistan.
Karen, you're right about the authorities have not been open about these things, and when there's sometimes a suspected terror incident, they are not open with protesters, which can lead to misinformation and riots and all the rest of it.
Yeah, but they've been saying that they've been saying that these demonstrations have been violent.
And they
haven't been.
No,
They've been incredibly peaceful.
Well, don't forget, Keir Starmer, the Southport, in the aftermath of the Southport attacks, he referred to the far right, didn't he? And a report some weeks later.
We're all far right thugs. I'm a far right thug.
No.
The fact that I'm an old, decrepit old woman, you know, I'm still a far right.
Karen, you don't sound decrepit to me. One question I've got for you. Are we letting the Conservatives off the hook? Labour have only been in for a year, and this problem is systemic, and it's at least a decade long, if not longer.
Well, no, I blame both of them, because basically they've not looked at what this, you know, they're not looking after the country. They're just looking after, A, their own interest, or B, they're just completely ignorant, and it doesn't even occur to them what they're doing in the long run.
Do you have any hope that this can change, Karen? Will your vote make this better? Is there a politician out there that you think could, stem the tide of illegal immigration and fix the country?
Well, the last time I voted, or I was allowed to vote, was I voted reform. Now, it's not because I have a great love of reform or anything else, but the fact that we've just gone round and round in circles, Labour, Conservative, Labour, Conservative.
Yeah.
You've just got to try something different, because otherwise, you know, you're your own worst enemy.
You most definitely are. Karen, wise words. Thank you so much for calling. Please give me a call again soon. Really enjoyed chatting to you. And Karen there feels that governments of all colours, Labour and Tories, complicit in this issue. Now, one question I've got for you, and I'm going to get to a great new topic in a second, but is there too much focus on illegal immigration? Because if it is, you know, circa 50,000 a year, I mean, it's too many, and it costs billions to accommodate these people, and then mostly they stay, and they've broken the law. So it's clearly a terrible, terrible thing. It's an economic, national security and societal disaster. But do we focus on it too much at the expense of the bigger story, which is legal net migration? Is it a sideshow that actually sidesteps the really important conversation with how many people come here legally every year and the impact that has on our society? Let me know. So many calls stacked up. After this, Elton John in Major Hot Water. Stag do's, too expensive, too dangerous. It's going to destroy your wedding before you've even got married. We'll discuss that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Many thanks to Dave, Samara and Matt for doing a great job. But who is our vision mixer? Jana. Jana is, I'll be honest with you, the most important person in the building, because she makes sure that the camera is pointing in my direction. So if you're listening on the radio, why don't you try watching on YouTube, and you can make a judgment about your tie, which I'm going to tell you is from the local cancer research. I had to have it dry cleaned twice because it had a suspicious stain, but look, I hope it's all right. I hope it's delivering. Phil's delivering. He's messaged me, Mark, these people who say refugees welcome and that anyone who disagrees is racist, they should be sponsors for them, but be made to be aware that if they commit any crimes, then the sponsor will get the same punishment. Whose country is this? Can't fly a national flag, but council scared to take down Palestinian flags. Ridiculous. Most people wouldn't have known where this insignificant country was before Israel kicked their bottoms. Annie in Surrey. Two things. The NHS waiting list has gone down because of cancellations. I know quite a lot of people this has affected. And secondly, the so-called decline in crime rate is because people are not reporting it. All you get is a crime number. The Labour guy is talking BS. Roger, Mark, Christian Walmer may well be the most deluded person in the UK. His love of the Labour left has no boundaries. He makes Corbyn look like a moderate. Mark says, Glyn in Catterick, can you ask Christian Walmer what he's smoking, as I'll have a dabble of it. This is a former Labour prospective parliamentary candidate supporting the government's record in office. I will say that talk is about opinions, and every opinion is welcome here. No one gets cancelled on my watch. I just won't have it. I'm considering cancelling Elton John. And I've loved him since I was 11. I think he's a genius. What an artist. How many records has he sold? Let me think quickly off the top of my head. I think around 500 million. He's an icon of music and all the rest of it. But he's in hot water because he and the comedian David Walliams have upset a British Hindu group in France by taking over the restaurant that they'd booked, which saw the Hindu cancelled. But here's a question. Are stag and Hindus, are they getting a bit over the top now? Do you really want to fly to another country and spend thousands of pounds? Is it not a bit outrageous? I'm delighted to welcome someone that knows this industry inside out. It is Bernadette Chapman, who is a wedding planner. Hello, Bernadette.
Good evening. How are you doing, Mark?
Listen, I'm very well, and I find it very hard to be angry with Elton John because he's produced so much music that I love, and I think he's a delightful man. These ladies, though, that's pretty devastating for them, what happened, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess the first thing I would say is we don't entirely know if it's true, do we?
It could be fake news.
It could be fake news.
And apparently Elton was not aware that a Hindu was going to lose their booking.
Yeah, exactly. So let's assume that it is true. Really, the people that are at fault is the restaurant. Because if you have taken a booking, then you honour that booking. You don't shove them to one side because the celebrity wants to use your restaurant. So the restaurant, if it is true, are the ones that are at fault. What they should have done from a customer service point of view, let's say they still wanted the celebrity, is they make good on that booking, that they book something fabulous for that Hindu somewhere else. You don't just ditch them 24 hours before and say, hey, we'd rather have Elton and David.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the perfect solution, Bernadette, and I think what needs to happen is Elton needs to perform at the wedding. And he can do Kiss the Bride, one of his hits from the 80s.
Yeah.
And your song, obviously, for the bride. And then Walliams can do a stand-up routine.
I mean, it's the perfect solution, is it not?
Yeah, exactly. Although I think one of those artists might empty the room if they perform, and maybe it's not Elton. No, I'm only kidding. Listen, so here's my question. And maybe I'm a killjoy, but I just wonder whether it's getting a bit over the top now, Bernadette, with the stag and hens, with lads flying to Vegas, ladies going off to the south of France and Ibiza and all the rest of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we hear all about the fact that, you know, rising costs of living and people are scaling back on their weddings because they don't have the money for big weddings. And so it doesn't make sense to me that you have a massive Hindu. You know, I have to say, I do agree with you on this. I don't feel that it's necessary to be spending so much money on a hen and stag do.
No, I mean, the biggest issue is that in your social group, there will be people who are doing quite well in life and making a bit of money. And then you might have someone else who's taken time out to be a student or something, or perhaps they're just on a lower income. And my view is if you're organising a stag or a hen, I think you have to cater to the poorest member of the group and work backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is you're then not being very inclusive, are you? You are beginning to make somebody that perhaps doesn't have that money, or they've got children and it's not so easy for them to just jet off to IB for a week. So it's, and I don't want to sound like a killjoy, but I do feel that it has got a little out of hand. And I think it's important to think of who is it that you want to spend your time with, and what type of event can everyone afford comfortably?
Now, I don't expect you to name names because you are the most discreet wedding planner in the country and also very, very successful at what you do. You are the go-to person, Bernadette Chapman. So without naming names, or perhaps stories you've heard in the industry, but can these hen and stag do's go wrong, and have they?
I'm quite sure that they have. I mean, we hear the stories. I'm sure it's never gone wrong at any of my clients.
Of course not.
But you certainly do hear stories of, hens hooking up with stags, and it all just turns a little bit messy.
What do you mean with hen? Do you mean a hen group that connects with the stag group and then they don't know each other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yikes.
I mean, the thing is, we all know that once alcohol is involved, people forget what they're doing and morals go out of the window. So, I do feel they have got a bit big. What's wrong with having your hen and stag in the UK? But
yeah, I mean, I'm back in the day. I'm showing my age, Bernadette, but you go to the pub, have a few pints, you have a late night curry, and then you go and sit in a nightclub and stare at women you'll never have.
Yeah, well, you maybe, not me. But...
Exactly, you'd be staring. Well, you can have any man, I can't lie. Anyone watching the show will exactly understand why I've said that. Now, Bernadette,
yes.
the thing with these the stag and hens though is why is it so important? Why do we need this tradition, do you think?
I mean, I do feel it's important that we can spend time with our friends before we get married. 100%. I think that's an amazing thing to do. And I think, you know that when you get married and you start having children, that sometimes it can be difficult to spend quality time with your friends. So I do feel that it's a brilliant thing to do, just to kind of, have fun together. It's not about your last day of freedom, forget that. But it is about having fun with your friends before the wedding.
Is it an unspoken rule that you're allowed to be unfaithful because you're not married yet? Is that, are we anointed with that right to be naughty on the stag or hen?
You're asking the wrong person. I was brought up Catholic. Honesty is my middle name. So I am completely against people who are unfaithful, and I get quite angry about it. So I'm definitely the wrong person for that, because I feel if you are about to make a commitment to somebody, you should be faithful from the outset, not just when that ring is on your finger.
Damn, there goes the loophole. No, I think, of course, you're absolutely right. I think adultery is probably not the best foundation for a long and lasting marriage. No, my stag do was really nice. And what I did is I rented a cottage in the middle of nowhere in the countryside. And it was just for a night, and it was a few £100, which split between, 8 or 9 lads was a pretty economical 24 hours. We went to a big Tesco and filled up the car with beers and food and all the rest of it. And the only real expense was just going down the local pub, sinking a few pints, and then back to our accommodation for an evening of a couple of beers and a few laughs, a couple of lols.
It sounds perfect to me. That would be my ideal.
And I tried desperately to commit adultery, but none of the lads would have it.
Didn't work. No.
I'm like, come on, boys, last night of freedom, throw me a bone here.
I mean, I just remember at my hen do, a friend had organised a stripper for me in this Greek restaurant. And I just remember being like mortified and so embarrassed. But that's my memory.
No, there you go. Well, listen, it's great to have you on. And I think keep up the good work. More power to you, Bernadette, in helping couples celebrate what is a wonderful journey. And a big part of that is the stag and hen. I hope to catch up with you soon. Thank you, Bernadette.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Brilliant stuff. Wedding planner Bernadette Chapman. After this, we're going to power through your calls, and I cannot wait because we're going to put the worlds to right. Immigration, this woke government, stag do's. Don't go anywhere.
They take more territory, and again our response is, okay.
Well, what do you think we should do?
You've been bad again.
Well, what would
we'll
you
let
suggest?
keep
All right,
what's
your remedy then? If we declare war on them, have World War III? Is that what you want to do?
Well, ultimately, if Russia is gonna keep invading people, then yes.
Yes. Well, you want World War III. Dan Hodges wants World War III. Page 1 tomorrow morning, Daily Mail. Let's have World War III. Are you going to send your kids out to fight for you?
Well, Mike.
Oh, you've gone mad, Dan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
On the message board, before I get to your calls, Martin in Lichfield. Hi, Mark. 4 hospital appointments cancelled in the last 4 months and rearranged. There's your get around with the reduction in appointments. Please, can you tell me what drugs your guest Christian Walmart is on? I want some. Oh, dear. Tony in Cardiff. Hi, Mark. You've always had balls of steel, says Tony. There's a blast from the past. What is this idiot or Christian Walmer on about? I live in Wales and the 20 mile an hour zone is awful. Unless there's a camera, I don't obey to it. Keep up the good work, says Tony. Tony, thank you for your kind words. How about this? We've got James says, Labour PR machine. Little play on words there, Labour, Liber. Labour PR machine is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, but most journalists won't say what they know. But Labour got you talking about, or can they be possibly bad at this government? It's misdirection. Please, all aboard the Skylark. Grant says, I always thought that the 2% inflation was why Rishi called the quick election, as he knew it wouldn't stay there and he didn't want his financial history to be looked down on by it going up again. Martin, your caller Laura Jane is on the money. Yes, the Tories were bad, but they were a brake to the accelerator that's going on now under Labour. What we're talking about is the Fabian Society mission statement: destroy to rebuild in their own socialist image, as long as it takes, whatever the measures. Starmer, Fabian. Sadiq Khan, Fabian. Phony Blair, Fabian. Countless others. Get Rupert Lowe on. He's across all of this. Fifth columnist Martin in Whitley Bay is not happy. Please don't give care for Calais any time. They are leeches on the British society, says Frank. And Stephen, Mark, 2 biological sexes is not the opinion of the Supreme Court. It is objective fact. You're absolutely right. Ernie, hi Mark, why can't you say husband and wife? The gay and transgender community use that terminology. Very, very true. You called out some brilliant double standards there. So many great messages. Let's get to some calls now. And who have we got? Where shall we go? Oh, Steve in North Wales. There you go. We were in South Wales. Now we're in the North Wales. Hi, Steve. How are you, sir?
Hi, Mark. It's great to be on the show.
Thank you.
I think you're a very, very much underrated presenter, and it's great to see you back on.
Oh, that's really kind of you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. My point is, you had a person on before who owned restaurants called Clinton. I think his name was Clinton anyway.
Yes, it was. Clinton. Clinton
he
Pugh.
had restaurants, and I can sort of reflect exactly what he went through. I had a nightclub in my town, a small nightclub, and we were doing really, really well. We opened it up during the lockdown, and it boomed. But unfortunately, after a couple of years, the cost of the living, honestly, a lot of customers say the cost of the living, we had to put our prices up anyway because of what we had to buy the alcohol in for.
Yeah.
I mean, it was £160 a barrel for example, a barrel of Moretti, with the VAT. So, I mean, the thing is, the VAT is a killer in the industry.
An absolute killer. I mean, VAT is the biggest racket, isn't it? It's a tax on everyone.
Yes, it is, and especially when you're struggling like a small business to make the overheads. When my business partner, he went out and got a full-time job working to try, and obviously I ended up running the business, but unfortunately we couldn't sustain it much longer, and after several months we closed.
Yeah, I mean, it's devastating. What I find so bizarre about this government and with Rachel Reeves's budget that we're still paying the price for, Steve, is they don't realise they're the government. They actually need economic growth so that they can have their socialist agenda. So the irony is it's destroying us, you're destroying businesses, but they're destroying themselves as well, aren't they? This is a race to the bottom.
Exactly what it is. Because if you get the economy to boom, where obviously that even for example a high street can open up or something like this, or restaurants, bars, at least give it a bit of headway where you can actually make a profit and not work your head off for hardly anything for you, where you can even feed yourself at the end of the month. It's shocking, absolutely shocking.
And how's the situation for you now, Steve? Can you tell me about your business activities? Are you still in running a business?
Well, not really so much now. I'm a carer for my father now, which obviously... funny what happened is when I left the business, it took me 4 weeks to move out, or moved all the gear, the sound, the lighting equipment, everything. We moved out, and then I went to work for a friend of mine, and I ended up falling off a ladder, and I had a hip replacement last year, so it's a bit of a turnaround for me. But things are okay. I mean, my dad's okay. Everything's going well. I'm just really upset and very frustrated with the state of this country, and with my fellow people that not necessarily in the alcohol industry, but in other trades as well, where we're all struggling.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that we treat entrepreneurs as though they're all millionaires and they're greedy or something. They're not. They're wealth creators. They provide jobs. They pay tax. But what's happened is that folk like yourself, Steve, are so disincentivized to take that risk and put in those hours that you've got out of the game altogether. Although I will say that caring for your dad is a very important vocation too. And I wish your dad all the best and more power to you for looking after him. He raised a good un, Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Definitely. Give me a call again soon. Best wishes to your old man, Steve in North Wales there. Carol is in Manchester. Good evening, Carol.
Oh, good evening, Mark. First time that I've really watched all the way through your programme. Excellent.
Oh, well, listen, thank you. I'm very honoured to have you watching all evening, Carol.
It is. I've watched you on other, let's just say, on other
side.
On the other side with it. And I do go from, like all different and that. But seriously, like at the end of the day, I think us people are guided in so bad, and it's not the television as well with it, because we're all struggling in our different ways. We can go from food, we can go from health, we can go from our, like everything. We can go through everything. But the thing is at the end of the day, I want to point out to people, because I came from my side, grown it up, been with my husband, we're 65 years of age, been with him at 15. We have absolutely, diversity in my side was absolutely fantastic. I've got nothing to do with diversity. What we need to do now is look of what, and it's scary, I'm going to do it in a delicate way, it's got nothing to do with colour, what you call it, or whatever.
Yeah, race, all that.
What's been going on over the years, and I've watched it, and I've watched it, and I've watched it for a good few decades. Me and my husband have watched it, right, at the end of the day, is that there is a culture that's out there. I'm going to slightly do it because not all that culture is bad or whatever. There's something going on over the last few decades, right, that is destroying the way that our lives are, or our beliefs, or what you got. We're all arguing in this country very, very badly, and some of us don't even know what we're arguing about. I remember when I came from Moss Side and came to Tameside, I used to argue for 10 years regarding about diversity and everything with it. It's got nothing to do with that damn thing. It's got something to do with something a lot bigger than that. A lot bigger than that. And we need, at the end of the day, right, is like, we need sensibility, and we need leaders like yourself, on television, on what you call it. We need really good leaders that can literally make sure that we're not being brainwashed in different ways.
Well,
and I don't mean that in a bad way.
I agree with you, Carol, and I do think that there are some dark forces at play that have allowed this to happen, and for our country to be slowly destroyed in a very gradual way, a bit like boiling the frog. Carol, you've got to give me another call as well, because you've spoken absolutely fascinatingly there, and I appreciate what you've had to say. There's a lot more of a conversation to come, because the brilliant Johnny Gould takes to the helm at exactly 10 o'clock. You were on fire last night, by the way.
And likewise, Mark. It's great to have this very refashioned evening schedule here.
Well, it's a little old school, you and I, isn't it?
It is. It's back to the 10s.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, this is a hardy old brand, Talk, you see.
It's great. It's really great to be here. It's always great to be here. I feel like the bar is lifted when we walk in here.
Your vintage of the Talk project, 98?
Yeah,
99?
95. I was the fourth ever voice on the original 95 when it was There's a Good Argument for Listening, and then on day one here at Talk Radio.
3 decades on air.
Oh, yeah,
Johnny Gould.
I know. What can I do?
You've not been found out yet.
Well, maybe tonight. In fact, when you walked in at 20 past, you said, I forgot my satchel. I thought they were pulling me out, and you're getting into it. Get him off.
Never.
Put Dolan back on. Listen, we're going to unpack the Rachel Reeves thing, and we're going to ask the simple question, would you ever sell your house?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real question. Will you not pass it to your wife or your husband?